What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty. Join my Discord if you want to chat and share your thoughts, the link is in the description. 6C Chapter 136. Everyone is trapped. Ichigo didn't pay attention to him at all, so Ichigo didn't care about his movements in the dark. Yoruichi also kept watching beside Ichigo, and the other Shinigami were all attracted by the sudden burning flame, because they have found that the flame that suddenly burned was not an ordinary flame, but the flame that Zanpakuto, Ryujin Jaka, the commander-in-chief of Yamamoto Genyaze, turned into. Ryujin Jaka is currently the oldest and recognized Zanpakuto in the entire Soul Society with the highest attack power and the strongest heat type, so when his flame burns to other Zanpakuto, all Zanpakuto hardly have any resistance, and all are defeated in an instant. All Zanpakuto surrounded by flames turned into ashes and turned into a knife again, and fell to the ground. Of course, it was not a complete knife, but a broken knife. After the flames passed, countless broken knives appeared on the ground, and these were all Zanpakuto who had just counterattacked Muramasa or other Zanpakuto controlled by Muramasa. Except Byakuya Kuchiki and Senbon Sakura, all Zanpakuto controlled by Muramasa would be destroyed by himself. Lose. A smile appeared on the corner of Muramasa's mouth. Goodbye then, Shinigami, it's up to you to clean up the mess of Soul Society. After saying that, Muramasa turned around and left suddenly. Byakuya Kuchiki and Senbon Sakura turned and followed. Stop. Broken B looked at the figure who was about to leave, and immediately opened the mouth and said, 510 at the same time. The figure chased after the village. Don't go, Broken B. Yoruichi was shocked when he saw Broken B's actions, and he couldn't care about anything else, so he directly rushed towards Broken B. After all, Yoruichi was stronger than Broken B. Launched, but still caught up with Shobi, but fortunately Yoruichi caught up. If it wasn't for Yoruichi's catching up to make Shobi's movements stop for a while, I wondered that Shobi's position was probably more than 10 meters ahead, and there, now being surrounded by a fiery flame, was created by Ryujin Jaka. It's just that the Broken Bees stopped for a while because Yoruichi caught up, so that they didn't get burned, but in this case, all the Shinigami could only watch Muramasa leave. Judging from Ryujin Jaka's actions, it is obvious that he has received Muramasa's control. The group looked at the wall of fire in front of him, and Jashiro Yukitaki said, I didn't expect that even Ryujin Jaka would fall into Muramasa's hands. Teacher, what kind of Muramasa is Muramasa? Muramasa, he is a Zanpakuto that has existed for a long time. His ability is to invade other Zanpakuto, and then let his own will control the other's Zanpakuto. Kuni said with a serious look, the real purpose of stopping him is the urgent mission of the Godei 13th Division. But even though he said so, but at the moment, everyone is surrounded by the flames of Ryujin Jaka, and it is impossible to pursue them at all. You must know Godei 13, since Aizen's mutiny, there is no new captain to take over the positions of captains of the 3, 5, and 9 divisions, so although there are 13 divisions, there are only 10 captains, and now there are 10 captains. Among the captains, one defected to Muramasa's side. Of the remaining 9, one of them was seriously injured and did not participate in this operation. The other was only interested in research. There are 7 remaining, and now these 7, all of them are here, trapped here by Zanpakuto Ryujin Jaka, the chief captain. The two figures suddenly rushed towards the gap in the sky. It was Yoruichi and Broken B, but when they had just soared into the sky, they saw that the flames also separated 2 pillars of fire in front of them. There was a loud noise, the 2 fire pillars intersected, and an explosion was directly emitted. The strong airflow directly affected the balance of Yoruichi and Smash B, and the speed inevitably slowed down, but at this moment, Yoruichi and Smash B, 2 people suddenly felt an incomparable heat, and suddenly the 2 of them found that the flames around them had surrounded themselves. The 2 were startled, and at the same time retreated, falling back to the ground, and Ryujin Jaka did not pursue. It seems that Ryujin Jaka's purpose is to trap us here. Yoruichi wiped the sweat from his forehead. Of course Yoruichi was not tired, and the sweat was forced out because he was too close to Ryujin Jaka. If you want to go out in a normal way, it's impossible. Yoruichi and Broby's speed and flexibility are the strongest in the entire Soul Society. Since both of them are free from Ryujin Jaka's blockade, it is enough proof that others simply can't do it. Lord Yoruichi, do you have any way to get out? CGBE. Brobe asked looking at Yoruichi. Yoruichi didn't answer, raised his head slightly and looked to the side. The group followed Yoruichi's gaze. Yoruichi said, with Ichigo's strength, you can rush out very easily, and Ichigo opens the seal on me, so can I rush out. Indeed, Kyoraku Shunsui stretched out his hand and pulled his hat and said, I once fought with Mr. Kurosaki, so if Mr. Kurosaki wants to go out, it's easy. Everyone turned their attention to Kurosaki Ichigo. Advertisement Ichigo saw that everyone looked at him, but immediately felt a burst of heat, and he was slightly stunned. Ichigo looked around and asked suspiciously, this is old Yamamoto's Ryujin Jaka? This is the Ryujin Jaka, the commander-in-chief. Yoruichi appeared beside Ichigo and said, I was controlled by Muramasa, and now Muramasa has escaped. Escaped to this world. Where? Ichigo was slightly taken aback, and asked in disbelief. The present, Yamamoto Uenujai Shigekuni said, Murama has already gone to the present Karakura town. Karakura town? Ichigo said strangely, why, old man? Why is Muramasa going? Muramasa, he is also a Zanpakuto, his master was also a Shinigami of the Soul Society, named Shangha, who used to be a very famous Shinigami of the Soul Society, who achieved great popularity during a rebellion. So he was framed by someone, was imprisoned, but after being a little wronged, he beheaded Shinigami and left the jingling court. So far, he has betrayed the Soul Society and became a traitor. Later, I and another person lived in this world. The land of heavy spirits, that is, Karakura town, found Shangha and sealed it. Yamamoto Yuanujai Shigekuni said. Shangha used his own Zanpakuto's ability, no hook, to control other Zanpakuto to counterattack the master. The Soul Society also paid a huge price for sealing the Shangha River. These things, only Genryuze-sensei and Captain Unohana know about these things, Jashiro Yukataki said. Ichigo's eyes turned to Yoruichi. Yoruichi shook his head slightly and said, I don't know, I just knew there was this kind of rebellion at the beginning. As for the details, I don't know. In other words, is that at least 100 years ago? Otherwise, it is impossible for Yoruichi, who was the captain of the 2nd Division, to have left the Soul Society 100 years ago not to know. The feeling that Shangha was sealed, etc. Ichigo looked at Yamamoto Uenujaiju National Road. Master, you just said that the Shangha River was sealed in Karakura town, and the village is also heading towards Karakura town. Don't tell me. The village is doing this series of things for the purpose of it's all for his master. Ichigo asked. Yamamoto Uenujai Shigekuni didn't answer directly, but opened his eyes slightly and said, just after you broke my barrier, Muramasa immediately invaded my spiritual world and peeped at a small part of me. Memory, because he knows that he doesn't have much time to peep, he only has that short time, but during this time, other memories are not observed, just selected to peep a part of the memory. After peeping, he still has a little time I went to see other memories, but he immediately withdrew from my spiritual world, and then left directly, and the memory he peeped was the place where Shangha was sealed. Chapter 137. Village Jung comes to life. Hey, Ichigo said with a smile. It's really funny, the village is controlling the other Zanpakuto and letting those Zanpakuto counterattack his master, but he is so loyal to his master that he hasn't changed a bit for so many years, and he has no change in the village. It is naturally nothing, even if it is an enemy of the real world, it has nothing to do with the real world. Any price paid for its master is worth it, but for other Zanpakuto, especially those who are controlled by the village or attacking their masters. For Zanpakuto, how cruel this is, they can obviously fight side by side with their masters, they are clearly born in the soul of their masters, and the masters are equivalent to their parents, although they are somewhat dissatisfied with the masters, but it's not a big deal. But Muramasa controlled them and made them attack their masters, but even if they were controlled, even if they counterattacked their masters, they must still love their masters very much in their hearts. However, they counterattacked with their own hands, and even killed their masters. When they were controlled, they might not feel it, but if the control of Muramasa was lifted, then those Zanpakuto knew that they killed their masters with their own hands. Let those Zanpakuto face their hearts. Maybe they will go crazy, but obviously there will never be any Zanpakuto who knows that he killed his master with his own hands, and killed his master like his parents. The hearts of these Zanpakuto should be able to bear it, maybe it will be the best result to let them dissipate with their master at that time. Ichigo. Yoruichi shouted loudly, but Ichigo stopped talking and said, I'm sorry, but Muramasa, he is playing with other Zanpakuto and Shinigami's previous fetters like this, I'm just a little angry. In fact, Ichigo is just talking nonsense, because his Zanpakuto has no soul at all, it is just a little outfit in front of them. This is not the time, Yoruichi said. Ichigo, we are now trapped here by Zanpakuto Ryujin Jaka of His Excellency Chief Captain. We can't rush out, only you can go out. We will distract Ryujin Jaka later, when the time comes, you can take the opportunity to leave here, and then go to the other vice captains. Let them open the gate of crossing the world through the world. Go to the world, we will go there later. Yes, I see, I will go first, but I don't need you to distract Ryujin Jaka. Ichigo held Tensa Zangetsu in his hand and said, Yoruichi, you want to go with me? Ichigo said arrogantly, and Yoruichi is also very well behaved, nodded. Then Ichigo clenched Tensa Zangetsu tightly, and then charged and slashed. A black crescent appeared from the blade, and then directly cut off the flame wall formed by Ryujin Jaka. People were amazed when they saw this scene, but they didn't. Excessive surprise, because Ichigo's strength they also know well. Please, Kurosaki Ichigo, Chief Captain Yamamoto Motonyazai Shigekuni said. Yes, Mr. Yamamoto. Ichigo nodded slightly, then looked at the commander-in-chief and said, before leaving, Mr., I suddenly realized that you and my father can't be seen on the surface. My father is funny on the surface, but in fact it is really hidden. And although you are very majestic on the surface, you also have the kindness of an ordinary old man. Sometimes I really think you are my grandpa. Saying this, Ichigo didn't wait for the captain to speak, and rushed out with Yoruichi in his arms. Yamamoto Uenugai Shigekuni raised the cane in his hand, and Kiraku Shunsui said cautiously, don't be angry, old man Shan, although Mr. Kurosaki is powerful, he is only a 16-year-old child. He is only childish, so don't be with him, he counts. Yeah, Genryuze-sensei, Jashiro Yukataki also said, Mr. Kurosaki sometimes speaks without thinking, but in general he is a good boy. For him, we need good teaching, and no other of. Idiot, Yamamoto Uenujai Shigekuni said loudly. Kurosaki Ichigo, he has been a Shinigami for less than a year, and he has the ability to surpass the captain's level, and his Zanpakuto ability is even more amazing. Among all the captains, he can definitely kill several people. Just like Shangha in the past, they are all young people who are successful. If they can't guide them well, I'm afraid. It's alright. Hana Retsu said with a smile. Kurosaki Ichigo and Hibikika have different things on their backs, and there's Ishin too, your excellency chief captain. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot flowers katakana middle dot katakana middle dot. Hearing this, Yamamoto Uenujai Shigekuni nodded slightly, then suddenly opened his eyes and said, then it's time to give Ryujin Jaka a little punishment to this disobedient child. The crutch instantly collapsed, revealing the inside Zanpakuto. On the other side of Karakura town, a cross-border gate opened, and the village was coming out of the cross-border gate. He glanced around, and after identifying the direction a little, he stepped down and immediately went in another direction. Muramasa just appeared in Karakura town, and immediately someone in Karakura town sensed it, and there were more than one, Urahara Kazuki and Tessai Tsukabishi in the Urahara store, Kurosaki Ishin and Kurosaki Masaki in their own home, Ishida Ryujin in the general hospital, and Hiriko Shinji et al. At a warehouse. But they just glanced at it slightly, and then went about their own business, ignoring Muramasa. Zero. And just after the village Jun left, a figure appeared nearby. Just now the source of Ryotsu is indeed in this direction. Ishida Yulong slightly pushed his eyes on the bridge of his nose and said, but it's really strange, this feeling is not false, but it's only a little like Shinigami, and a little bit more. Other feelings, what is going on? Is this person a virtual Shinigami, or something else? I can only follow the past. Ishida Yulong's feet were a little bit, and the whole person immediately flew away, while he was advancing. The direction was exactly the direction Muramasa was heading. Because Muramasa did not hide his whereabouts in the slightest, Muramasa wanted to rush to the place where his master, Shangha, was sealed, as soon as possible. He knew that neither Ryujin Jaka nor Zanpakuto, who launched a surprise attack in Jingling Court, would not delay it for too long. And after he knew that Hazukimaru had been captured alive and handed over to the captain of the 12th Division, Kuretsuchi Mayuri, he knew that those days when Zanpakuto was under his control would not be long, and it was because of this that he did not hesitate to let Ryujin Jaka kill Kaden Kyokotsu and a series of Zanpakuto, but in any case, there is not much time left for him. He must unseal the seal of Shangha before the Soul Society arrives, otherwise, the meeting was all for nothing, so he did not hide his whereabouts, and rushed towards the destination directly. Chapter 138. Inoue Orihime saves Muramasa. The village is in the forest outside Karakura town. Speaking of which, this is really rare. In this modern environment, there is such a forest in Karakura town. Although this is on the mountain outside Karakura town, it's been a very rare thing. After all, this natural environment can be maintained. Cough cough. Suddenly the village started to cough violently, and with his coughing, his palms were instantly dyed red. Hoo-hoo. Muramasa took a breath, wiped the blood from his hands, then stood up and continued to move towards the target, but his body could no longer support his body, although Muramasa's willpower continued to support his body, but willpower could not completely replace his body after all. Muramasa, who had just walked out not far away, fell on the grass with a bang, blood flowed from his mouth, and Muramasa's body began to slowly move. If there is no accident, the village will completely dissipate here. Longui, hurry up. Inoue Orihime was running in the forest with a small bag on his back, and then said loudly to Arisawa Tatsuki, who was behind him. Use. 510, Longui said helplessly. Orihime, where are you taking me? Didn't I say it? Inoue Orihime waved his hand slightly and said, I'll take you to a good place, which I just discovered. It's a beautiful place, hurry up, let's go quickly. Really? Arisawa Tatsuki responded slightly, and then asked, what happened recently? Why did you come here? Is it because you were in a bad mood? Don't worry, Longui, I'm fine. Inoue Orihime's face showed a sweet smile and then urged Arisawa Tatsuki. Let's go quickly, Longui. It's nothing, there's no problem, Arisawa Tatsuki said in a low voice. Looking at Inoue Orihime's sweet smile, Arisawa Tatsuki didn't say more. In fact, Arisawa Tatsuki had a bold idea in his mind, but she didn't ask Inoue Orihime, because she knew that Inoue Orihime would not tell her. It wasn't that Inoue Orihime didn't believe her, but that Inoue Orihime didn't want to worry about herself. Oops. Inoue Orihime, who was suddenly running in front, let out a scream, and then only heard a bang, the sound of falling, and Arisawa Tatsuki was startled. Orihime, what happened? How are you? At the same time, he immediately ran in the direction of Inoue Orihime. It hurts. Inoue Orihime sat on the ground and rubbed his asterisk. Arisawa Tatsuki glanced and knew that Inoue Orihime was fine, but Arisawa Tatsuki didn't care about this, but another person on the ground, frowning slightly. This person. It's weird, and I've been so lazy lately that someone didn't even notice. Although he knew that the person in front of him was struggling to the brink of death, Arisawa Tatsuki's first thought popped into his heart. But not to save him, but a strange feeling, huh? Inoue Orihime finally endured the pain and opened his eyes and glanced at it. For a moment, Inoue Orihime's pupils shrank slightly, and then he stepped forward to check a little. This person is so weak. His vitality is constantly increasing. As time goes by, I'm afraid it won't be long before you die. Wait, Orihime, I'm going to call an ambulance. I know him, he's a very dangerous person, Arisawa Tatsuki said immediately, turning around and leaving. Inoue Orihime shook his head slightly and said, no, I still have to save him. After speaking, Inoue Orihime stretched out his hands and said, Shun Sakura, Xiao Chong, Shuangtian Guiden, I refuse. I saw two small figures. Flashed, and then formed a yellow protective film to cover the person, but Inoue Orihime did not know that this person was named Muramasa, the person who caused incomparable harm to the Soul Society. Inoue Orihime did not know the person in front of him. Who was the person? But Inoue Orihime's nature made it impossible for her to watch this person die in front of her like this, so although Inoue Orihime didn't know the origin of this person in front of her, she still tried her best to rescue her. And Arisawa Tatsuki saw her move and wanted to stop it, but saw the look in Inoue Orihime's eyes, so he stopped talking, but this time Arisawa Tatsuki didn't bring anything that could be Shinigami, so he was very worried, and Inoue Orihime said, Longwei, please go and fetch some water. Advertisement. Arisawa Tatsuki took out the empty bottle in Inoue Orihime's backpack and quickly walked out of the forest. When he walked out of the forest, a very beautiful lake appeared in front of Arisawa Tatsuki. There are all kinds of wildflowers everywhere, coupled with the rippling lake surface, and occasionally one or two small fish jump out of the lake. It is indeed a rare beauty. Arisawa Tatsuki glanced at it a little. Although the surrounding scenery was beautiful, Arisawa Tatsuki didn't stop there too much. She just stepped forward, filled the empty bottle with water by the lake, and then turned around and walked back. This is... Muramasa opened his eyes slightly, looked around, and naturally found Inoue Orihime who was treating him. It's you, Inoue Orihime. Muramasa looked at Inoue Orihime and said. Then he glanced at the yellow light film on his body and said, this should be your ability. How do you know my name? Inoue Orihime looked at Muramasa suspiciously for a moment. Huh? Muramasa forcibly broke free from Inoue Orihime's light film, and as Muramasa broke free, Shun Sakura and Xiao Chang immediately returned to Inoue Orihime's hairpin. Orihime immediately shouted, no, you can't get up yet, and the treatment is not over yet. As soon as Muramasa waved his hand, he directly threw Inoue Orihime to the ground. Oops. Inoue Orihime screamed. Of course, Muramasa used a lot of strength. Hey, Muramasa, what are you doing? Arisawa Tatsuki just came back feeling this scene. He immediately ran over to block Inoue Orihime and glared at Muramasa. If you want to fight, I'll fight you. Muramasa looked at Arisawa Tatsuki, frowned slightly and said, so it's Shinigami's agent Arisawa Tatsuki, I have no interest in you right now. Then Muramasa looked at Inoue Orihime and said, you don't seem to know at all. Inoue Orihime. Forget it, I don't have time to entangle with you. My name is Muramasa, and I am a Zanpakuto. I have read your information in the Soul Society, and in the Soul Society records, your ability is at an application similar to time, but you are still too weak now, and you have a good ability in healing, but in combat or other aspects, it is almost useless. But you are still useful, said Muramasa. There was a gleam in his eyes. Muramasa. Inoue Orihime was slightly surprised, then saw the Zanpakuto in Muramasa's hand and said, is this your Zanpakuto? Oh, it looks like you know some things, so it's best. Muramasa's face showed a slight smile, and then walked towards Inoue Orihime. Stop. Arisawa Tatsuki said angrily. If you come forward again, I will be welcome. Longwei, run away. Inoue Orihime held Longwei slightly and said, go find Ishida and Sato quickly. HMPH. Muramasa snorted coldly, looked at Arisawa Tatsuki and said, Ishida, Sato, probably Ishida Yuryu and Sato Yasutora, they are also recorded in the Soul Society. One is a Quincy, and the other does have other abilities. Humans. Since you know Kurosaki Ichigo, you don't want to go. HMPH, dreaming. Arisawa Tatsuki took the lead, and suddenly kicked a sidekick towards Muramasa. This kick, Longwei only used 7 points of strength, and there are 3 points left to give Arisawa Tatsuki enough opportunities and strength to go restrained. Arisawa Tatsuki's pupils shrank suddenly, because she only saw the other party's slightly extended hand, and then her whole body could not move. Of course, 1.4, Orihime, who just wanted to use her ability, also found that she could not move. Moved. Muramasa glanced at them and said with a smile on the corner of his mouth. It's nothing, it's just to let you guys not move around for a while, and now you don't have a way to become a Shinigami, so it's just a little bit stronger than an ordinary human being. After a while, he said, I think Kurosaki Ichigo will chase after him soon, and the two of you will be the best bargaining chip. A sound of shoo sounded, and the village immediately disappeared in place. Peefed, with a bang, an energy arrow hit the ground. Pierce a hole directly into the ground. Come out, Ishida Yuryu. Muramasa appeared behind Inoue Orihime and Arisawa Tatsuki and said, only you, the Quinquitcher, can carry out this kind of attack. If you don't come out, you will not be able to rescue me from my hands. Of these two. In the grass on the other side, Yulong Ishida came out wearing a Quincy battlesuit, made by himself, and holding a huge energy bow, looked at Muramasa and said, let go of Inoue and Arisawa-san. Chapter 139. The Conflict of the World. Shoo shoo shoo, energy arrows shot continuously, all of which were aimed at the village, but the village was not paying attention at all. He just stood behind Orihime and Longwei and ignored the threat of Ishida Yulong. These arrows always disappeared halfway through, and Yulong Ishida didn't dare to fight with all his strength, because it was very likely to hurt Orihime and Longui. D. Hurry up and let go of Orihime and Ryugi. Ishida Yulong pointed his bow and arrow at Muramata. Someone come and fight me one-on-one. I'm sorry, I don't have time to play with you, Mujang said softly, then looked at Longui and said, the bottle of water you just received seems to have come from this direction, right? There should be a water source here, right? Is it a lake? Yes. Why are you asking this? Orihime asked with some doubts. If you want to go there, I can take you there, because I found it there, but you have to release Longui first. This can't be done. Mujang shook his head slightly and said, you two are both hostages in my hands now. Although it is said that only one hostage is needed, if there is only one hostage, accidents are easy to occur, such as the one with 26 left. The hostage will not cooperate with my actions wholeheartedly, and it is not impossible to even make a small gesture, so in order for you to cooperate with me wholeheartedly, don't make any crooked ideas. I will use another hostage in my hand to threaten you, and at the same time the two of you cannot have any communication, and if one of you does anything against me, then the other will suffer instead. What? Longui was slightly startled and gritted his teeth slightly, but Muramasa didn't pay attention to it, but saw Yulong Ishida fight. If you don't want them to have an accident, don't follow me. But don't worry. Well, I don't have any interest in the two of them, but I have one thing to do now, so I don't have time to fight with you, and I don't want you to delay me here, so before I finish this thing, it's best not to have any changes, otherwise, these two women will die because of your relationship. D. Ishida Yulong looked at Muramasa and gritted his teeth slightly, at the same time secretly said in his heart. Damn, I just don't know why Ryotsu who suddenly lost this guy. If it wasn't like this, Inoue and Arazawa would just if he wasn't caught, he wouldn't have to be restrained everywhere like now. Don't worry, as long as I finish that thing, I will let them go. Muramasa said, I have no interest in the lives of the two of them. Muramasa opened his hands slightly, Orihime and Long the two of you immediately felt that their feet could move, and Muramasa said, I have untied the shackles on your feet. Of course, the other restraints on your body have not been loosened, so you can't even escape. After speaking, Muramasa turned around and stood in front of Orihime and Longui and said, let's go, take me to that lake. Ishida Yulong watched Muramasa's body come out from behind Orihime and Longui, and slightly raised the bow and arrow in his hand to aim at Muramasa's heart. My life just came back from this woman. Muramasa didn't turn his head and walked directly behind Orihime and Longui. He didn't turn his head, but his words were indeed directed at Ishida Yu who was behind him. Dragon said, if it wasn't for this woman, I'm afraid I would have died just now, but after I woke up just now, I didn't receive this woman's treatment. I pushed her away, because I didn't receive treatment, my life wouldn't be at all. For a long time, should we take a gamble? The stake is the life of these two women. First of all, you can let go of the bow and arrow in your hand. I will stand here and will never move. You are a quencher. In this case, the hit rate is definitely above 99%, but we're betting on whether I can kill these two women at the same time when your arrow pierces my heart. Ishida Yulong gritted his teeth and looked at Muramasa. I don't care what you're going to do, but can you promise to let Inoue and Arazawa go after you're done? Oh, Muramasa said with a smile. I just said that I have no interest in the lives of these two women. The only purpose of my life is to accomplish that, so if I had to choose between the lives of these two women in that matter, I wouldn't have any hesitation. Advertisement. Hearing Muramasa's words, the bow and arrow in Ishida Yulong's hand was finally put down after hesitating for a while. He didn't want to and couldn't take the lives of Inoue and Arisawa as a bet. It's really here, said the villager looking at the scene in front of him. Under the leadership of Orihime and Longui, the villager soon came to the front of a lake. The villager looked around with a hint of excitement on his face. It's here. Muramasa looked at a flash of excitement in the surrounding extension. He pushed Orihime and Longui directly away, and walked towards the front, because he was so excited that he consciously forgot Ishida Yu who was behind him. Dragon. Just as the village is pushing Orihime and Longui away, Ishida Yulong directly raised the bow and arrow in his hand and aimed at the village, and then shot the arrow directly at the village. When Ishida Yulong shot the arrow, the village was the first. Time felt it, but he didn't have time to react, and suddenly he saw the sakura flower falling, and in an instant, the sakura flower formed a wall behind Muramasa with a puchi sound, and the arrows shot by Yulong Ishida dissipated in sakura, inside the petals. This is Byakuya Kuchiki's Senbon Sakura. Ishida Yulong looked at the sakura petals that appeared in front of him and was shocked, because it was impossible for sakura flowers to exist in this season, plus the Ryotsu on these sakura petals, except Byakuya Kuchiki Senbon Sakura would not have any possibility. A figure flew out, a man in samurai armor and a mask. It's you, Senbon Sakura, said the villager looking at the man in front of him. Let him leave it to me, Muramasa, go and accomplish what you want to do, Senbon Sakura said. Then holding Zanpakuto in his hand, he said, scatter it. The Zanpakuto in his hand instantly turned into countless sakura petals. That's right. Mujang nodded slightly, and then immediately ran towards a big tree in the center of the lake. Looking at the big tree, there was a look of nostalgia in Mujang's eyes, and he took a deep breath. With a breath, Ryotsu began to gather. because he was too excited. Muramasa didn't notice what was wrong in Senbon Sakura's words, because saving the Hibiki River has always been Muramasa's goal, but this is not the purpose of other Zanpakuto. But now Senbon Sakura's performance seems to be better than Muramasa's. I still have to worry, for fear of being destroyed by others, but Muramasa's whole mind is not here, he didn't notice it at all. Impossible. Muramasa said in disbelief. How could he escape the siege of Ryujinjaka? Suddenly Muramasa seemed to remember something. He gritted his teeth slightly and said, he is really inscrutable. How? Long Gui said incredulously, his eyes widened. Damn, why is Byakuya Kuchiki's Senbon Sakura here? Ishida Yuryu dodged Sakura Hana's attack, then looked at Muramasa. By the way, this is Soul Society Zanpakuto's betrayal. Muramasa, Kurosaki Ichigo has come out. Senbon Sakura forced Ishida Yuryu back and said, when the master and I came over, we met Kurosaki Ichigo and Shihouin Yoruichi, and it was the master who held back Kurosaki Ichigo and the others, otherwise, I'm afraid he's already here. Now is not the time to talk about this, Senbon Sakura said. You know very well Kurosaki Ichigo's strength, he may come over at any time. If you want to save Shangha, you must come before him, otherwise, all the everything will be destroyed. Zanpakuto's betrayal. Long Gui was also slightly startled, looked at Muramasa and asked, Ichigo, what happened to Ichigo 510? Is Shinigami acting as Kurosaki Ichigo? Muramasa said casually, who knows? Probably still trapped by Ryujinjaka's flames. Chapter 140. The reason of Byakuya Kuchiki. Before that, Ichigo and Yoruichi, under the leadership of Hell Butterfly, passed through the gate of the world and came to the world. They appeared in the high sky of Karakura town, but because Ichigo and Yoruichi were still in Shinigami state, they were not afraid at all. Discovered by ordinary humans, Ichigo glanced around slightly, then took a deep breath, and immediately released Ryotsu, relying on Ryotsu to find Muramasa's location. Muramasa's Ryotsu is very special, because he is Zanpakuto, neither Shinigami nor Fu, let alone human, so his Ryotsu will be very special. So Ichigo quickly found Muramasa's Ryotsu, but found Muramasa at the same time as the Ryotsu of Ichigo. Ichigo also discovered the Ryotsu of Ishida Yuryu and the Ryotsu of Inoue Orihime. Ichigo's pupils shrank suddenly, and he immediately rushed towards the direction he sensed Ryotsu. A few figures flashed, and the figures of Ichigo and Yoruichi had left the city and rushed towards Ryotsu. Suddenly, two people appeared in front of Ichigo. One of them was the captain of the official 6th Division, Byakuya Kuchiki, who had been assisting Zanpakuto since Zanpakuto's mutiny, and the other, of course, his Zanpakuto Senbon Sakura. Byakuya Kuchiki. Yoruichi was stunned for a moment, then an angry expression appeared on his face. Get out of the way, Byakuya. Looking at Yoruichi with an angry face, Byakuya Kuchiki said, Senbon Sakura, go and help Muramasa. His current body can't fight at all. I'll stop Shihouin Yoruichi. Yes, master, Senbon Sakura replied and left immediately, while Byakuya Kuchiki held the Zanpakuto and said, let's scatter. The Zanpakuto in his hand instantly turned into countless sakura flowers. Get out of the way, Byakuya Kuchiki. Yoruichi looked at Byakuya Kuchiki who was standing in front of him and said, otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Shihouin Yoruichi, do you know why I want to help Muramasa? Byakuya Kuchiki watched Ichigo silent for a while, and then opened his mouth, with countless sakura petals flying around his body. Yoruichi took a deep breath, and Ichigo said, I don't have time to listen to your explanation right now, but no matter what, I know that Byakuya Kuchiki is Byakuya Kuchiki, and the reason why he will help Muramasa against us is that he must have his own last resort. Otherwise, Byakuya Kuchiki, who places great importance on the Kuchiki family's honor, will not let go of the Kuchiki family's honor and let the entire Soul Society look at the Kuchiki family with strange eyes. Of Kurosaki Ichigo. Byakuya Kuchiki looked at Ichigo and said, I didn't expect you, someone who has never been to the Soul Society a few times, would know me so well, but since I'm here, I can't let you pass for the time being, you should be able to understand. Ah, I can understand, Ichigo nodded slightly, then raised Tensa Zanjetsu in his hand and said, but being able to understand is one thing, whether I want to do it is another, we'll do it. Saying that, the Ryotsu on Yoruichi began to emerge continuously, and rose. Yoruichi's fist pointed at Byakuya Kuchiki and said, I don't have time to stay here, now, Byakuya Kuchiki, let me ask you, do you let me? Step aside. Seeing your words, I thought you could understand me too, Byakuya Kuchiki said softly, while countless sakura petals fluttered around him. Huh, I want to understand you too. Yoruichi took a deep breath and said, a very scary Ryotsu emerged from Yoruichi's body, and said, but I don't want to think about it now. Advertisement. Feeling the huge Ryotsu from Yoruichi, Byakuya Kuchiki no longer hesitated, stretched out his right hand slightly, and the countless sakura petals around him flew directly and stayed on Byakuya Kuchiki's palm, forming a Zanpakuto. Byakuya Kuchiki held this slightly turned Zanpakuto's tip toward the ground and released his hand slightly, Bankai. Countless huge blades appeared behind, Senbon Sakura Kageyoshi, Byakuya Kuchiki, and all of them instantly turned into countless sakura petals. Drink! Yoruichi shouted and charged directly towards Byakuya Kuchiki. After releasing her full strength, Yoruichi's speed increased dozens of times, and even at the most basic speed, it was faster than the average Shinigami using Shunpo. Speed, and Byakuya Kuchiki controlled sakura flower with both hands faster than normal Shinigami, but couldn't catch up with Yoruichi. And Yoruichi can kill Byakuya Kuchiki with his current speed if he can't react at all, but because Byakuya Kuchiki is her student, so he didn't attack him, just taught him a little. Shihouin Yoruichi, let me tell you one thing, you know that the owner of the village is named Shangha, and everything he does is to save Shangha, and Shangha, he is 110 years old. The former Shinigami, Byakuya Kuchiki looked at Yoruichi, and since Yoruichi possessed a power that he couldn't stop, he could only speak to attract Yoruichi's attention. Byakuya Kuchiki said, because of his outstanding performance in the Shinigami Rebellion, Shangha became the 3rd seed of the 6th division at that time. He was very appreciated by my grandfather Kuchiki Yinling, so he was recruited as a son-in-law and given to him. Kuchiki, surname. So his full name is Kuchiki Shangha, so it is, I understand. Yoruichi nodded slightly, and then said with a cold expression. But Byakuya, Muramasa has already implicated people in this world. I don't allow them to have an accident. Leaders, you understand me, do you mean R******? And Ichigo scratched her nose and said, do as you said this time. Byakuya Kuchiki let out a sigh of relief after hearing this, then nodded slightly, and left Shunpo, and I hugged. Where did Yoruichi go? Shihouin Yoruichi, Byakuya Kuchiki looked at Yoruichi and said, this matter is about the honor of my Kuchiki family. If Muramasa had not gone to lift the seal, and now the time is pressing, I would not have been able to tell you a word, but since you have already know, then I hope you can leave this matter to me. Shihouin Yoruichi, Kuchiki rang. Yoruichi said, wait, if you say that, you should call him uncle. Byakuya Kuchiki closed his eyes slightly, then opened it and said, it can be said that, later, he relied on Muramasa's power so much that he was framed to kill his companions, because there were witnesses. All the jingling court was only he was able to imprison Shangha first, but when my grandfather and the captain were about to rescue him, he killed the guard and escaped after being provoked during the detention. The entire jingling court was an enemy, and later he was sealed by the commander-in-chief and my grandfather. But despite the seal, my grandfather told me that even though Shangha had betrayed, he was still a member of the Kuchiki family. These things must come from the Kuchiki family, cell to maintain the Kuchiki's honor. So it is, Yoruichi nodded slightly and said, I understand what you mean. Byakuya, because Shangha is sealed, so you can't solve it, but you know that one day this seal will be lifted, not the seal itself, that is, someone will unlock it, but you can't take the initiative to open the seal, and you can't keep staring at the seal, so when the village is betrayed, you already know the purpose of the village, so you pretend to take refuge in the village. The purpose of Muramasa's subordinates is to be able to know in time when Shangha unlocks the seal, and then to solve this matter, right? I see. Byakuya Kuchiki nodded slightly and said, then, next, we must try our best to restrain Ryotsu, and don't let Muramasa have any possibility of rubbing his head. That's it. Byakuya Kuchiki nodded slightly, and then Yoruichi returned to Ichigo and looked at Ichigo pitifully and said, is this okay? Seeing your very cute side, I jokingly said, or it's up to you to decide in the future. And Yoruichi also understood Ichigo's joking, so jokingly said, okay. HMPH, I know, and it is estimated that Mujang should not have the time and energy to be distracted. After all, if he wants to rescue his master Shangha, he must lift the seal wholeheartedly, so as long as you are careful, then there will be no problems. When the time comes, Shangha will be handed over to you to solve, and I will protect Orihime and the others. Chapter 141. Unblocking of the Kuchiki Shangha. Kacha, Muramasa finished the chant in his mouth, and then he saw the big tree in front of him, shattered like glass, turned into pieces and scattered. Then something similar to a coffin rose from the bottom of the lake and stood in front of the village Shangha. The Shangha is in it, I can feel it, I can feel the breath of the Shangha. Mujang murmured. He murmured, Muramasa, who had always been very calm, almost completely lost his mind at this moment, and then directly stretched out his hand to unlock the seal on the coffin. With a bang sound, the coffin in front of him suddenly exploded, and a man emerged from the coffin. His clothes were corroded due to the passage of time, revealing muscles that were still strong after 100 years. A knife, obviously this should be the body of Muramasa. The crotch skirt of the lower body may not have any corruption due to the different materials, but after 100 years, this crotch skirt can be seen to be very special. He is wearing old clothes, and he is also wearing a red windflower yarn, that is, the scarf-like thing that Byakuya Kuchiki wears around his neck, which is very expensive, equivalent to the price of building 10 houses in Jingling Garden. Judging from the fact that most of the captains and vice-captains of the Soul Society and all ordinary Shinigami live in the team building, the price of building a house is probably not low. 510 The village of Shangha was walking towards the person in front of him step by step. When the village was standing in front of this person, Ichigo came with Yoruichi in his arms. Seeing the people who came, Inoue Orihime and Arisawa Tatsuki were very surprised and called out, Ichigo, Yoruichi, you are here. Then Ichigo and Yoruichi nodded to them. Kurosaki Ichigo, you came very quickly, Muramasa said, looking at Ichigo who suddenly appeared. But you are still a step late, I have already unblocked Shangha. This is Shangha, your master. Ichigo hugged Yoruichi, turned his head slightly and looked at the man floating 1 meter above the ground beside Muramasa. But I didn't come late, I came at the time, just right. Just right? Mujang was stunned for a moment, then pointed to Shangha Road beside him. Idiot, I can already unblock Shangha. That's right. Yoruichi interrupted Muramasa and said, it's just right after you unblock Muramasa. Then Yoruichi looked at Senbon Sakura and Ishida Yuryu who were still fighting and said loudly, okay, Ishida, Senbon Sakura, your fighting can be stopped, there is no need to continue fighting, CGBE. Byakuya is coming soon, and next, our enemy will be Kuchiki Kyukawa and his Zanpakuto Muramasa. Shihouin Yoruichi, how do you know Shangha's full name? Muramasa looked at Yoruichi with a confused expression. I see. Senbon Sakura responded, then stopped fighting with Ishida Yuryu, and suddenly stood beside Ichigo and said, it seems that the master has told you something. Of course. Yoruichi nodded slightly and said, at that time, he was blocking my way. If he didn't tell me, how could I stop fighting him? What's going on? Muramasa looked at the scene in front of him in astonishment. Advertisement, don't you understand yet? Byakuya Kuchiki appeared beside Senbon Sakura and said, I just used you to unblock and revive Shangha. For this reason, I pretended to betray the Soul Society. What did you say? Muramasa looked at the sudden Byakuya Kuchiki and said with disbelief. You mean, everything you did in Soul Society was just for me to unblock Shangha? Why? What is your purpose? What is it? Damn, you be asterisk 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 D. Mujung gritted his teeth fiercely. He turned his head to look at Shangha, but Shangha seems to have been sealed for too long. The seal has been undone, so Shangha will not take much time to wake up. Purpose. My purpose is to kill Shangha and clean up the honor of the Kuchiki family that was sullied by him. Byakuya Kuchiki said softly. I want to clean up the filth that Shangha left to the Kuchiki family. Only after the head of the Kuchiki family killed Shangha with his own hands can he be completely washed away. No matter how powerful Muramasa is a Zanpakuto. As Zanpakuto, his defense against his master is the weakest, especially Muramasa who has been planning to rescue his master for hundreds of years. The master is extremely loyal, and he has just rescued his master, so the village is not seeing the anger and murderous intent flashing in Shangha's eyes at all. With a puff, Shangha looked at Muramasa who was in front of him, and the murderous aura in his eyes burst out. Even Ichigo and Byakuya Kuchiki in the distance could clearly feel this murderous aura. Jung naturally felt it too, but he thought that this murderous aura was directed at other people. As Zanpakuto of Shangha, Muramasa naturally knew what happened 100 years ago, so after he felt Shangha's murderous aura, he did not at all concerned, especially by the presence of Byakuya Kuchiki. Do you want to settle accounts with me? Hey? A smile appeared on Muramasa's face. Shihouin Yoruichi, although I also want to fight you, but there is no chance, I will become the Zanpakuto of Shangha, so that let's fight again when the time comes. Said the villagers turned to look at Shangha behind him, and Shangha also opened his eyes gently at this time. You should pay the price, Muramasa. Yoruichi slightly came out of Ichigo's arms, clenched his fists and said, I promised Byakuya that I would not do anything to Hirakawa, but Muramasa, you are holding Orihime and Ryuki abducted, and in Soul Society, I have to figure it out with you about Zanpakuto, who controls Shinigami. And Ichigo said, how about I take action? Hearing this, Yoruichi shook his head and refused and said, no need, this time I will do my best to end this farce in an instant. Hearing this, Ichigo also nodded, Shangha. Moonjung watched Shangha open his eyes, with an extremely excited expression in his eyes, and he walked towards Shangha step by step. The village is a Zanpakuto that can invade other in this way, he can control other Zanpakuto according to his own wishes, so Muramasa has a very good understanding of the psychology of any Shinigami and Zanpakuto, even if they have never seen Shinigami or Zanpakuto, Muramasa can read each other's words, deeds and eyes. In the change, you can guess the current psychology of the other party. With a poochie sound, Shangha held the Zanpakuto in his hand and stabbed it into Muramasa's body. The entire tip of the knife pierced directly from Muramasa's back, but Shangha was not satisfied at all, and he sent out again. With such force, the entire blade pierced through Muramasa's body. Chapter 142. The village is collapsing. Muramasa lowered his head in shock and disbelief, looking at the blade that pierced into his body, especially the hand holding the handle of Zanpakuto on Muramasa's right hand, and then raised his head slightly to look at Shangha, muttering to himself. Shangha, why? This grasp penetrated Muramasa's Zanpakuto in Shangha's hands, which is Muramasa's body, and Muramasa has been following Shangha since his awakening, and he has never produced any other psychologically. It was Ishin's single-minded helper Shangha, who knew that after Shangha was sealed, he continued to start planning. Even after 100 years, he did not change in the slightest, and finally let him find the place where Shangha was sealed. Then he unblocked Shangha, but he did not expect that his result would be like this. Being stabbed by Shangha with his own body is like a normal person, no, let alone a normal person, even a normal Shinigami will die soon after receiving this blow, but the difference is that he has power beyond the ordinary Zanpakuto, so even if he takes a blow to the vital point, he does not die immediately. Why? Because you betrayed me, Muramasa. Shangha looked at Muramasa and said, before I was sealed, I kept calling you, but you didn't give me a response, and at that moment, I was caught by Yin Ling and Yamamoto. Seal. I was sealed by them without even a chance to fight. If it wasn't for you, if you could respond, then that battle, I would never be sealed by Yin Ling and Yamamoto. No, it's not like this, Shangha. Mujung seemed to have caught something, he said anxiously. At that time, I had been waiting for you, Shangha. I had been waiting for your call, but I never heard the sound. River your voice, but one day suddenly I left your spiritual world, and then I can't go back again, and then I learned that you were sealed. I have been looking for the place you sealed. I didn't find it until now. HMPH, do you think I'll believe you? Shangha said. And even if things are as you said, so what, since you can't hear my call, it's useless to keep saying that. Shangha suddenly exerted his force, and with a click, Zanpakuto, who had stabbed into Muramasa's body, was directly broken. Muramasa clutched his abdomen and stepped back. He looked at the knife in Shangha's hand in disbelief. The handle, and Shangha threw the broken blade casually. Ichigo looked at Shangha's sudden action, and clenched the hilt of the knife with both hands. Although he was in a hostile position with Muramasa, Ichigo also felt a trace of sadness for Muramasa. The ruthless master, let alone Muramasa, is probably a sadness for any Zanpakuto. But Ichigo felt not only sadness for Muramasa, but anger for Shangha. Although Ichigo didn't know what happened between the two of them, from the conversation between the two of them, Ichigo vaguely guessed that before Shangha was sealed, he wanted to use Muramasa's power to break free from the sealed situation, but unfortunately, for some unknown reason, Muramasa in Shangha's spiritual world could not hear Shangha's voice. The call of Shangha, the village is not always running out by himself, because this not only consumes the power of the village, but also consumes the power of the Shangha, so the village is not there, but the result is Shangha because of this. Sealed, so Shangha put all the responsibility on Mujang. He believes that the reason why he was sealed is because the village is not responding to his call. Even after 100 years, Shangha has not changed at all. He still thinks so, he alone thinks that all the faults are committed by the village is. He never looked for the reason in himself at all, and because of this, Shangha stabbed him fiercely just after he was unblocked by the villager. As for why he broke the body of the villager, it was because in Shangha's view, since it was useless, then it is better to destroy it directly. Shangha suddenly put his gaze aside Byakuya Kuchiki's body, looked at Byakuya Kuchiki's dress and said, "Silver wind flower yarn, pincers. This kind of dress, you are from the Kuchiki family, and pincers these two things and windflower yarn are not qualified to wear if they are not core members. Kid, who are you from the Kuchiki family? I am the 28th generation head, Byakuya Kuchiki, and the current captain of the 6th division." Byakuya Kuchiki said, "Come here to wash away the stains you brought to the Kuchiki family." 28th generation, head of the family, captain of the 6th division. Shangha responded, and then said, "It seems that I have been sealed for a lot of days. Remember that Yinling is the head of the 20th 7th generation. Yin Ling has passed on the position of the head of the family and the 6th division captain to you, so what about Yin Ling?" Shangha looked at Byakuya Kuchiki and shouted loudly, "Is he already dead, isn't he? If not dead, if so, how could he possibly pass both positions to you? Don't keep mentioning your grandfather's name with your mouth shut." Byakuya Kuchiki looked at Shangha Road with a calm expression on his face. "You don't have the qualification to mention your grandfather's name." Then Byakuya Kuchiki said with a slight pause, When I was in the house, my grandfather had already told me everything about you, and the treatment for you had already been decided. Kuchiki Shangha, you made a lot of credit for the Kuchiki family back then, but you also smeared the Kuchiki family, but the merits and demerits cannot be calculated in this way. As credits, we will not take back Kuchiki's surname. No matter when you were a member of the Kuchiki family, you are called Kuchiki Shangha. But as a fault, honor the Kuchiki family. Smear, Kuchiki Shangha, as the head of the family. I will use your life and your blood to wash away the stains that you brought. Hey, it looks like Yin Ling is really dead, Shangha said with a smile. Otherwise, he shouldn't have handed these things over to you, kid. Since Yin Ling is dead, then your Kuchiki family owes something to you. I want to get back a little interest on you first. Advertisement. The expression on Byakuya Kuchiki's arrogant face did not change in the slightest. Senbon Sakura. Byakuya Kuchiki rushed towards the sound of the river when he opened his mouth. Yes, master. Senbon Sakura agreed, and then suddenly came to Byakuya Kuchiki's side, and then turned into countless sakura petals, and then these sakura petals formed a Zanpakuto and appeared in Byakuya Kuchiki's hand, and the Zanpakuto in Byakuya Kuchiki's tight hand moved even faster, a three-pointer. Ask for flowers. Use me, Shangha. Mujang forced himself to come to Shangha's side, and at the same time he was holding his broken body in his hand. Humph! Shangha didn't even look at the village Jung, he retreated abruptly, and then stretched out his hand and grabbed a halberd for sealing that was stuck on the ground. There were several halberds all around. Look, it's just ordinary metal, but it's not an ordinary weapon, it's specially made for sealing, so there are some other powers gathered on the halberd. Each of them has the power to seal, and ordinary seals will not use these at all. These halberds will only be used when preparing to seal the existence of strong power, and when Shangha is sealed, these long halberds will be used. 5 or 6 halberds were used in full, which shows how terrifying the power of Shangha is. Dang 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 dang, Byakuya Kuchiki slashed down with Zanpakuto in both hands, but was blocked by the halberd in Shangha's hand. In a blink of an eye, the two of them passed several moves, but in terms of melee combatability, the two of them were not too strong. The big gap, the sound of Chang, saw Byakuya Kuchiki holding Zanpakuto in both hands and being framed by Hikari River with a halberd. You still have 2 strokes, kid. Shangha looked at Byakuya Kuchiki and said, no wonder Yinling will give you both the positions of the head of the Kuchiki family and the captain of the 6th division. It is indeed a bit of a skill. What do you mean? The expression on Byakuya Kuchiki's face didn't change in the slightest, but there was a strange look in his eyes. Oh, Shangha said disdainfully. Are you asking me why I don't use Zanpakuto, but use this? Very simple, Zanpakuto is just a tool, a weapon. Since this weapon is no longer wanted to be used or it is no longer suitable for me if you want to, then naturally you have to throw it away, because you can always find a replacement. Really? Even if this weapon has been silently waiting for its master to wield it for 100 years? Byakuya Kuchiki asked, looking at Shangha. HMPH, you mean Muramasa? Shangha suddenly exerted strength with both hands, pushed Byakuya Kuchiki out, and immediately chased after Byakuya Kuchiki, and said at the same time, when I was sealed, he didn't respond to me. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. Unable to respond to my Zanpakuto, there is no need to exist in this world. What? Muramasa opened his eyes, and he looked at Shangha in disbelief. If it was before, Muramasa could lie to himself that Shangha misunderstood him, so he made these actions, but with the when Shangha said these words, the village was completely given up, and in an instant, a deathly aura suddenly surged in the village's body, and in an instant, the village was completely wrapped up. Chapter 143. Hollow 1, Ichigo. What's wrong with him? Yoruichi looked at Muramasa while holding Ichigo's arm. Ichigo looked at the village and said, since his master Shangha was sealed, he has never stopped to rescue Shangha for hundreds of years. Later, he finally found an opportunity. For this reason, he controlled almost all Zanpakuto in Jingling Court. He rebelled against Shinigami, and then finally learned where Shangha was sealed, and came here to rescue Shangha. His only wish for 100 years was to be able to fight with his master Shangha as before. For the past 100 years, his body has been weakening every day. If it wasn't for his belief in saving Shangha, I'm afraid he would have dissipated long ago. But now, Ichigo shook his head slightly and said, the only belief in 100 years has been completely destroyed. As Zanpakuto was denied existence by his own master, I am afraid that he will not exist at this time in the near future. Why is this happening? Arisawa Tatsuki looked at Muramasa and said, Ichigo, didn't you say that? Zanpakuto was born in the soul of May 13th, Shinigami, and Shinigami is the closest relationship. Why is this? Yes, Zanpakuto was born from the soul of Shinigami, and the shape and ability of Zanpakuto are determined by the soul of Shinigami. Ichigo nodded and said, Shinigami got Zanpakuto's help by knowing Zanpakuto's name. Zanpakuto and Shinigami should live together, fight together, and finally dissipate together. This is my relationship with Shunkage and Zangetsu. But Shangha doesn't seem to have planned it. The completely self-centered Shangha probably just regards Zanpakuto as a tool, and any tool can find a substitute, so he can kill his own Zanpakuto without hesitation, Muramasa said, with a slight meal from Ichigo. Said, if Shangha was not handed over to Byakuya, I would have killed this guy. Ah. Muramasa suddenly let out a scream, and then I saw a Ryotsu gushing out from Muramasa's body and rising into the sky. This Ryotsu was like a signal, and Byakuya Kuchiki and Hibikikawa were both heading towards the sky at the same time. In order to deal with the attack, the battle this time was much more intense than the previous battle. Obviously, the previous fight between the two was just a test, and now that the test is over, then naturally both sides have to exert their full strength. This Ryotsu. Ichigo looked at Muramasa. A blood-red Ryotsu surrounded his body, and the blood-red Ryotsu was almost black. This feeling can't be wrong, is the virtual Ryotsu. Ishida Yulong came to Ichigo's side and said. That's right. Ichigo nodded slightly and said, this is indeed Ryotsu. Wait, Ishida, your power? Ichigo suddenly looked at Ishida Yuryu and the energy bow in his hand and said, because I'm used to fighting with you, so I didn't notice it at first, and now I suddenly remembered. Yulong, is your Quincy stronger? UB asterisk 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 D. Ishida Yulong turned his head abruptly and ignored Ichigo. Ichigo smiled and looked at Ishida lightly with his left hand around Yoruichi. Hey, Ishida, you can't do this kind of attitude, it's a bit arrogant. You are arrogant, your whole family is proud, Ishida Yulong said angrily. Ishida, you're even more arrogant when you say this. Ichigo said. Ichigo Yulong looked at Ichigo with an angry face. Ichigo was startled and immediately waved his hand and said, well, don't be angry, Ishida, since Soul Society after you came back, you started to become mysterious, and you spent less time with your companions, so I'm just joking, don't take it too seriously. Advertisement, stupid. Ishida Yulong just wanted to say something, but suddenly the figure of his father Ishida Longshan flashed in his mind, and all the words he wanted to say stopped, and he lowered his head slightly and stopped talking. Ichigo frowned slightly. Ah, my body is so hot, why is this happening? Muramasa said, and at the same time the Ryotsu on his body became even stronger. Suddenly, cracks appeared in the entire space, and there were dozens of Manos Grande, that is, black long bodies with black parts. It is a dress similar to a witch's cloak. Jillian with a clown-like nose and a white mask, and then Muramasa's Ryotsu no longer shoots straight into the sky, but spreads around, and as the spread, countless phantoms appear in the air, although these phantoms are just trash fish, but the number is too large, thousands of phantoms appear in the air, and the densely packed almost fills the entire sky. The troublesome guy, Ichigo said, smiled at Yoruichi lightly. Let go of Yoruichi, raised Tensa Zangetsu with his right hand. took a deep breath, and then a surge of Ryotsu suddenly appeared on the Tensei Zangetsu in his hand. Ichigo, he suddenly shouted, Crescent Moon Sky Chong. A black curved blade shot straight away, puff poo poo, because the number of swarms of trash fish is too large, and the density is too high, so Ichigo's Crescent Moon, Tien Chong, directly opened a huge passage in the swarm of miscellaneous fish, and countless empties were killed in the blow just now, but it did not have any effect on the whole situation, because the Crescent Moon rushed away. The huge passage that came out was completely filled in the blink of an eye after the Crescent Moon rushed past, as if it had never appeared. Cut. This amount is too much trouble, Ichigo frowned slightly. Humph. Ishida Yulong snorted coldly beside Ichigo, then raised the energy bow in his hand and opened the bow slightly. Rain of light. Suddenly Ishida Yulong let go, and at this moment, there should have been only one energy arrow shot. I went out, but on Ishida Yulong's energy bow, there were countless tiny energy arrows shot out, covering almost the entire sky in an instant, like a raging rainstorm. Allah, it's really a rain of light. Ichigo looked at Yulong Ishida's skills and smiled, then held Yoruichi in his arms again and said, then I'll leave this to you, Ishida. Orihime, Dragon Gui, tell me what happened to you during this time. If you want to talk about love, change the place. Ishida Yulong said with a big cross on his forehead. Yes, yes. Ichigo waved his hands casually, but he didn't mean to move his feet. Compared to us, Ichigo, should you tell me about the situation? Arisawa Tatsuki raised his head slightly and looked at Ichigo. Let's talk about this when we go back, Ichigo said easily, and Arisawa Tatsuki said with dissatisfaction, you said. Bankai, Senbonsakura Kageyoshi, Byakuya Kuchiki's voice came, and at the same time a Ryotsu rose up into the sky. It doesn't look good, Ichigo said. Byakuya Kuchiki's Zanpakuto, Senbonsakura has become Zanpakuto. In this case Bankai, Byakuya Kuchiki's power should be stronger than before, but Shangha's strength can't either. Small, if something happens, it will be troublesome. Ichigo and Yoruichi looked at each other. Yoruichi nodded slightly, then Ichigo let go of Yoruichi and said, sorry, Yoruichi, I'll go first, they'll leave it to you. Yoruichi nodded slightly, and took the initiative to let go of Ichigo. Ichigo turned and rushed towards Byakuya Kuchiki. As soon as Ichigo rushed out, a Jillian stood in front of Ichigo. Trouble. Ichigo looked at Jillian 1.4 in front of him, kept his feet, and waved the hilt on his right hand lightly, and saw a sword suddenly appear in front of Jillian's head, and then pierced through Jillian's mask. In Jillian's brain, this Jillian's movements immediately stopped, and then the whole body disappeared directly. But just killed one Jillian's Ichigo, two more Jillians appeared in front of him, and all the Jillians around were heading towards Ichigo. Obviously Jillian took Ichigo as the first target. The one in the sky, countless trash fish are constantly turning into Jillians. It's really troublesome. Ichigo looked at Jillian around him. Of course he could leave the place in an instant, but he couldn't leave, because he had already seen that several Jillians in front of him were gathering Ryotsu, ready to release Sero, while Ichigo behind him are Orihime, Longwei and Ishida Yulong. So many Seros can't be blocked by Ishida Yuryu and Orihime. Although Yoruichi is also behind, Ichigo doesn't want to make trouble for her, so Ichigo is ready to kill these Jillians. Chapter 144. Hollow 2. Boring, Ichigo said, and the hilt in his hand kept swiping, piercing Jillian's head every time, but there were too many Jillians, nearly 100 of them, and new Jillians were constantly being formed, even if it was Ichigo who kept killing Jillian, but he could only keep the number so that the number of Jillian would not increase again. However, Ichigo has never used Tensei Zangetsu's moves, but Ichigo keeps gathering Ryotsu on Tensei Zangetsu. Shoo shoo shoo, dozens of red Seros happened directly, and all Seros' targets were Orihime, Ishida and others. Ichigo suddenly raised the Tensei Zangetsu in his hand and slashed it down. The huge black-red curved blade of Crescent Moon Rush suddenly shot out. Countless Seros, and then directly smashed the dozens of Jillians behind them into two halves. Shoo shoo, two red lights flashed by Ichigo's side. I saw that the only two Seros left were not hit by the Crescent Moon, and they continued to blast in the direction of Orihime and Ishida Yulong. Cut. Ichigo's figure, Shen, disappeared directly in place, appeared in front of Sero, and then the Tensei Zangetsu in his hand slashed directly on Sero. Although Sero's power was powerful, but after all, it was only released by this ordinary Jillian, and Ichigo's power was not weak. Sero was directly split by Ichigo, and the only remaining Sero had been blasted in front of Yoruichi and Ichida 26 Yulong. It was going to be shot, but 3 days of shielding, I refuse. A yellow, translucent, slightly curved triangle appeared upside down in front of Yoruichi and the others. With a boom, Sero slammed directly on the shield, but it didn't have any effect. Orihime waved his hand slightly and the 3-day not shield disappeared immediately, and then Yoruichi looked directly at Ichigo and said, Ichigo, just go and fight, I will protect them. Okay. Ichigo nodded slightly and said, I see. A smile appeared on the corner of Ichigo's mouth, and then he raised the hilt in his left hand slightly and said, then I will no longer retain my strength. With a wave. Cracked the air flash. Ichigo's figure disappeared immediately. Ichigo appeared in front of Jillian in the distance, and Tensei Zangetsu in his right hand had already split Jillian's mask. I saw that Jillian's entire body was split into two by Ichigo, and a very terrifying Ryotsu extended from Tensa Zangetsu's sword body, which eliminated Jillian from behind like a tide. But Ichigo didn't stay in place. His body kept disappearing and appearing, and every time a row of Jillian disappeared. Although new Jillians are constantly being formed, Ichigo's attack speed is very fast, completely exceeding Jillian's forming speed, so the number of Jillians is still decreasing. Byakuya Kuchiki raised his hand slightly, and the countless Sakura petals fluttered to form a huge Sakura style and attacked directly towards Shangha. Shangha was startled, and the halberd in his hand spun at a high speed. With a boom, the Sakura style was blocked and shocked, but the halberd in Shangha's hand instantly shattered, and then the entire Sakura style devoured Shangha's body. After the Sakura petals passed, Shangha's body became riddled with holes. Byakuya Kuchiki looked at Shangha. His eyes shrank suddenly, and the Shangha in front of him suddenly turned into a phantom and disappeared in front of him. It's very strange. Kyoka appeared beside Byakuya Kuchiki and said. Byakuya Kuchiki turned his hand and countless Sakura petals devoured Kyoka again, but this Kyoka disappeared again. With a puchi sound, the sound behind Byakuya Kuchiki the river appeared, and at the same time, Shangha held the broken halberd in his hand and looked directly behind Byakuya Kuchiki. A blood column shot out. But when Byakuya Kuchiki devoured Shangha with Sakura petals, he saw the figure of Shangha dissipate again. This is my power. Shangha appeared in front of Byakuya Kuchiki and looked at Byakuya Kuchiki and said, you should know that Muramasa's ability is to enter the spiritual world of other Zanpakuto and manipulate other Zanpakuto, and his ability it is extended from this ability of mine. My ability is able to disturb anyone's five senses. That is to say, what you see now is just the me I let you see. I'm standing in a position you'll never find out. Five senses. That is to say, sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, these five senses? Byakuya Kuchiki opened his mouth and said, does that mean hallucinations? Advertisement? Illusion? It's not that kind of pediatric stuff? Shangha said with a smile on his face. Now your whole body feels in my master, and you can't fight normally anymore. He said, only seeing Byakuya Kuchiki's front of the river suddenly turned into countless rivers. It is obvious that the vision is controlled, and the sound of the river has become illusory, and the hearing has lost its effect. Byakuya Kuchiki's Ryotsu is even more unable to. Feeling the sound of the river, the sense of touch is also ineffective. Saying that, Shangha waved his hand slightly and said, of course, this method can be restrained. As long as you close your heart to fight with me like Yinling and Yamamoto, then this method will be ineffective. Byakuya Kuchiki looked at the countless ringing rivers in front of him. No, if you seal your heart, even if you can defeat you, you can only be sealed again, and sealing can only be a short-term means, so I will not seal my heart, the purpose to kill you. Under such circumstances, how dare you dare to be delusional? Shangha's face showed anger. The narrow-minded Shangha was very resentful to Byakuya Kuchiki who was facing danger but still had no fear at all, and he hoped to see Byakuya Kuchiki in a state of embarrassment unbearable look, not the dull face now. Shangha once again pulled out a complete halberd and charged directly towards Byakuya Kuchiki. Byakuya Kuchiki raised his hand slightly, and countless Sakura petals went directly towards Shangha, but this Shangha was just a phantom. His body-side Shangha appeared beside Byakuya Kuchiki, and the halberd in his hand stabbed fiercely. The puchi halberd penetrated Byakuya Kuchiki's body and pierced into Byakuya Kuchiki's abdomen. Impossible. How could you attack me with such precision? Shangha looked at Byakuya Kuchiki and said incredulously. Your five senses have obviously been disturbed by me. HMPH, I'm still so arrogant now. Shangha glanced around, then raised the halberd in his hand and said. With a puchi sound, a blade shot through Shangha's side and nailed it behind Shangha's back. A bloodstain appeared on Shangha's cheek. If Shangha hadn't turned his head to the side in time, then I'm afraid this would have been the case. A knife will directly pierce his head, then there is no need to say more. Byakuya Kuchiki opened his mouth and opened his hand slightly, and a Zanpakuto immediately appeared in his hand. Byakuya Kuchiki pointed the tip of the knife to the sound of the river. I inherited the responsibility of the Kuchiki family from my grandfather Yinling. Now do it again. The moment he said this, all the Zanpakuto in Jijing space turned into Sakura petals and fluttered beside Byakuya Kuchiki, and then the Sakura petals gathered on the Zanpakuto in Byakuya Kuchiki's hand, and immediately opened a pair of Sakura petals. Huge white wings. End scene White Emperor Sword. It's not wishful thinking. Byakuya Kuchiki calmly said, although you can control my five senses, but Shangha, I'm not fighting alone. Byakuya Kuchiki raised his hand slightly and said, Jijing Senbon Sakura Kagayoshi. The petals of Sakura formed countless Zanpakuto around the two people, completely enclosing the two people. In my space, there is no point in disturbing the feeling, because these more than 1,000 blades can hit the space. You in any corner. Guard? Stupid, I don't need that kind of power. Shangha pointed at himself and said, my power is unique and cannot be imitated by anyone, so my power is used to destroy your bondage to me. Today I want to completely break the shackles of the Kuchiki family. Stupid. Ichigo's figure appeared in Byakuya Kuchiki's annihilation space. He looked at Shangha and said coldly, Shangha, I don't know much about your past, I only know a little bit, but from that point I knew that the reason why you have become what you are now is that you misunderstood the nature of power. The nature of power is not to destroy or create something. The nature of power is to protect and protect the people you care about. Things, guard the bond between yourself and your partner, and only when you use your power to guard can you exert your power to the fullest. Said Ichigo, pointing to himself. My name is the name of Ichigo. It means to protect my whole life. To protect my sister, my partner, and my home. The reason why I can have the power I am today is because I want to protect. It's really embarrassing, the head of the 28th generation. Shangha looked at Byakuya Kuchiki and said, are you still wanting to kill me now? Because I didn't attack with my 5 senses just now. Byakuya Kuchiki said. At this time, Senbon Sakura's figure appeared behind Byakuya Kuchiki. Of course, it was just a shadow. Shangha saw Senbon Sakura's figure. His pupils shrank suddenly. Byakuya Kuchiki said. Shinigami and Zanpakuto were originally 2 people. It is only by resonating with each other's souls that the strongest power can be exerted, and you, who gave up everything for the sake of the so-called honor, cannot defeat me in Senbon Sakura. Shut up 513, it's you who don't understand anything. Shangha's face showed endless resentment and anger. No matter how much I have achieved, I did not agree with me. Let me betray the name of a traitor, and I am exiled, and if that is the case, then I create my own place by my own strength. Strength is order. Chapter 145. Hollow 3. Ichigo looked at Kuchiki. Shangha wrote. Be proud of yourself, because you were from the Kuchiki family before, so your life will be handed over to Byakuya to break. If it is me, as your punishment for breaking Zanpakuto, it will make you regret that you are still alive, regret that you couldn't die sooner. HMPH, arrogant brat, Kuchiki. Shangha said disdainfully when he heard Ichigo's words. The current brat doesn't have the strength of points, but he is more arrogant than each other. Is that so? 35 Ichigo replied slightly. I'd better wait for you to settle Byakuya before you tell me this, but I don't have any hope of hearing it, because I believe that you're definitely not a match for Byakuya Kuchiki. What? Kuchiki. Shangha looked at Ichigo with a trace of anger on his face. He looked at Ichigo and said, Little devil, you are too arrogant. The so-called 28th generation head in front of you, under my power, is completely arrogant. Vulnerable. You are the most vulnerable, Shangha, Ichigo said coldly. Byakuya and Senbon Sakura trust each other, and they work together to protect the honor of the Kuchiki family. But what about you, Shangha? Although you betrayed the Soul Society, but after all, you are just a Shinigami. But as a Shinigami, you don't even believe in Zanpakuto born in your own soul, and even broke Zanpakuto with your own hands. Zanpakuto was born in Shinigami's soul, which is equivalent to Shinigami itself. It's the same, but Shangha, you don't even believe in yourself. What else can you believe? As I said, I don't need to trust this kind of thing, Kuchiki. Shangha said loudly. All I need is power, powerful power. Then use this power to create a new world, a new order, and I will be the new king. It's hopeless. Ichigo turned slightly and said, Forget it, Byakuya. I'm going to find Yoruichi. This guy will be handed over to you. If I had known that Shangha was such a hopeless guy, then I would why bother to come here? It's a waste of time, and if that's the case, it's better to spend this time having S*X with Yoruichi. Saying that, Ichigo turned around slightly, and Shunpo left. This guy's power has increased a lot more than the last time he was at Bipolar Hill, Byakuya Kuchiki said inwardly as he watched Ichigo's voice disappearing. The speed just now is really scary. I will also work hard, now. Master. Senbon Sakura's phantom appeared behind Byakuya Kuchiki. Byakuya Kuchiki shook his head slightly and said, Okay, Senbon Sakura, we will concentrate all our strength on this blow. Yes, Master, Senbon Sakura responded immediately, and then saw Senbon Sakura's phantom disappear, and the huge white wings behind Byakuya Kuchiki became even more dazzling. HMPH, if you want, then I'll kill you with this blow. Kuchiki Hikari raised the halberd in his hand, and Ryotsu on his body kept gathering on the halberd in his hand. After killing you, I will kill you. Go and kill that brazen brat just now. Byakuya Kuchiki didn't speak, and then the huge white wings spread out. I saw a slight point under Byakuya Kuchiki's feet, and the whole person suddenly rushed towards the Kuchiki Sound River. Kuchiki Sound River tightened the halberd in his hand, and then moved towards Byakuya Kuchiki. He rushed over, and the distance between the two disappeared in a blink of an eye. With a loud bang, Byakuya Kuchiki's white emperor sword and Kuchiki Shangha's halberd collided. Two huge Ryotsu collided suddenly. The powerful force directly dented the entire ground, and at the same time the entire Jijing space was completely destroyed. Destroyed, the smoke dissipated. Byakuya Kuchiki's figure appeared behind Kuchiki Kyukawa, and Kuchiki Kyokawa's figure stood behind Byakuya Kuchiki. Obviously in the blow just now, after the two people collided with Ryotsu, rushed past the opponent. Advertisement, dang dang. Twice, Byakuya Kuchiki held Zanpakuto and used Zanpakuto pillar to support his body on the ground without letting himself fall down, and Kuchiki Shangha did the same, holding a halberd in his hand, although the halberd had been broken, but Kuchiki Shangha also supported his body with the broken halberd, and neither of them spoke. The two seemed to be about the same. The two people supported their bodies. And it seemed that the two were equally injured, but just after holding on for a while. Byakuya Kuchiki's hand could no longer hold Zanpakuto, and the whole body fell directly, with a boom, Senbon Sakura coming out of Byakuya Kuchiki's Zanpakuto. He immediately supported Byakuya Kuchiki, and Kuchiki Kyukawa was also unable to hold the halberd in his hand, but Kuchiki Kyukawa seemed to be able to stand up, only to see Kuchiki Koshiki standing there said, It's not over yet, I still have the final end. Muramasa, come here. Muramasa, come over quickly. Muramasa? Kuchiki Shonga kept shouting. Did you hear me? I'm calling you. Muramasa? Muramasa. With a cross of Shu, Ichigo's figure appeared in front of Kuchiki Kyukawa. Muramasa. Why? Why didn't you respond to me? Kuchiki Kyoka looked at Ichigo in front of him and fell directly to the ground. Some desperation opened his mouth and said, maybe he was like this when he was sealed 100 years ago, so he stabbed Muramasa directly as soon as the seal was lifted. Remember Muramasa? Ichigo held Tensa Zangetsu in his right hand, squatted down slightly, and looked at the Kuchiki-sounding river on the ground. It seems a little late, are you late? Muramasa asked you to stab you, and then acted as though the Zanpakuto of the body was broken by you. How could? The hope in Kuchiki Shonga's eyes began to gradually dissipate. Immediately, Ichigo continued. Oh, yes, there is one more thing. Do you know how you were sealed before? Let me tell you, because Muramasa didn't answer your call. But why did Muramasa will he not respond to you? You are the master of the village, under normal circumstances. No matter what you want to do, the village should respond to you. But why doesn't the village respond to you? Ichigo said. Waiting Kuchiki Shonga went to think and said immediately. Because the village is unable to hear your call. Shonga, as the master of the village is born in your soul, but the village is unable to hear your call. You should any idea why this is? Impossible. Why is this? Why? Kuchiki Kyukawa muttered to himself. Suddenly a powerful Ryotsu surged from his body. Ichigo frowned, but then let go, because Kuchiki Kyukawa he did not stand up, and the gushing Ryotsu did not gather, but dissipated all around. Obviously, the life of Kuchiki Kyukawa had been completely exhausted. Shonga's death, and dissipated away. Hey, Byakuya, are you alright? Ichigo looked at Byakuya Kuchiki, who was more than 10 meters in front of him, and said, Zeonhei is dead, you have already maintained Kuchiki's house, and you don't have to pretend to betray. Shonga. The village seemed to sense the death of Kuchiki Shonga, and his figure kept rushing over, and it came out from the countless voids. Really, I forgot, it's not over yet? Ichigo said softly. Forget it, I'll get rid of him, and once Hibiki dies, as his Zanpakuto Muramasa, if it is dealt with, then the Muramasa may only become a void in the end. Muramasa, who is so loyal to his master, and who has sacrificed everything for his master, should not have such a fate. Ichigo appeared in an instant. Where is Muramasa? He looked around for a while, then suddenly rushed towards Muramasa who was less than 10 meters away in front of him. His right hand tightened. Ichigo was going to directly lead to how? Use Tensa Zangetsu to cut down Muramasa. With a puff, Ichigo's figure rushed past the position occupied by Muramasa. There was blood in the sky, and even Ichigo's Tensa Zangetsu was covered in blood. Disgusting. Ichigo said, and then kept moving towards him. The Kusama who rushed towards him slashed away, and Murasa stood there without moving, but the Kusama all around defended him desperately, and even in the blow just now, dozens of Kusama directly met Ichigo's Tensa Zangetsu's blade, which saved Muramasa from attacking. Suddenly, all the virtual movements stopped, and then I saw that Muramasa's whole body was completely wrapped by the Ryotsu on his body. It looked like just a black thing, and then the surrounding virtual objects were directly given by Muramasa. Absorbed, first of all the emptiness closest to Mujang, then the emptiness around him, and finally even those Jillians were not spared, all of them were absorbed by Mujang. It's a little troublesome now, Ichigo murmured to himself, looking at the situation in front of him, while the others, Byakuya Kuchiki, Senbon Sakura, Orihime, Ishida Yuryu, Ryuki, they all saw the sober in front of them, and for a moment everyone stopped and looked at the situation in front of them. Chapter 146. Hollow IV Ichigo looked at the midair, Muramasa already wearing an empty mask. He had 2 horns on his head, but they extended straight out to both sides. The place where Muramasa's eyes were on the mask was a V's hole, a half-moon-shaped thing similar to a blade appeared on the arms of his hands, and immediately red eyes appeared from the mask, following the V hole, from one side to the other. Obviously he only has this one eye, but that V is his eye socket. The figure of Shu, Muramasa disappeared in place in an instant. It's very fast, his speed is not lower than Byakuya Kuchiki. Ichigo's mind came to this thought, and then Tensa Zangetsu in his right hand turned, holding Tensa Zangetsu in his backhand. Suddenly he stabbed behind him. When behind Ichigo, Muramasa used the blade on his arm to hold Tensa Zangetsu, and in a split second he suddenly appeared behind Muramasa, slashed towards Muramasa, and just broke through the village. Muramasa felt the clothes, although he wanted to dodge, but Ichigo has no strength now, so he didn't dodge and was cut. Seeing that the ferocious wound on his back has not yet bleed before high-speed regeneration, Ichigo was a little surprised when he saw this scene, and Halmura also imitated Ichigo and came to Ichigo's back in an instant, but Ichigo was early. I found it, and Ichigo's 513 eyes were very calm and peaceful, without any fluctuations. And Ichigo appeared at Muramasa's side in an instant, holding Tensa Zangetsu and slashing down suddenly. With a sound of clang, Tensa Zangetsu was caught by the blade on Muramasa's arm. Is that okay? After this guy becomes virtual, his strength can't be underestimated. Ichigo's right hand tightly held Tensa Zangetsu's heart. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. The Tensei-Zanjetsu in Ichigo's hand was shaken by Muramasa, and at the same time, the blade in Muramasa's other hand had broken through Ichigo's Madara-like Death Tyrant outfit, and there was a sound of "Puchi." Ichigo's shoulder was broken by the blade on Muramasa's arm. With a boom, Ichigo's figure disappeared again, and then appeared in the sky. Ichigo looked down at Muramasa, and Ichigo was a little angry. This guy is really annoying, let's solve it quickly. Ichigo thought to himself, looked at Muramasa, and saw that Muramasa had disappeared. Ichigo immediately looked for Muramasa's figure, and Ichigo found it immediately, and he in front of him, Muramasa, who was standing opposite him, was staring at himself with that eye, and at the same time a blue energy ball had formed in front of his mouth. This is Sero. Ichigo looked at Muramasa. He was a little surprised and said, has it completely become empty? This guy, said Ichigo, took a deep breath, and then took the initiative to stand in front of Muramasa and glance at Tensei-Zanjetsu in his hand. The corner of his mouth slightly twitched. With a slight smile. How interesting. 35 said that Ichigo's Ryotsu suddenly strengthened, and the Tensei-Zanjetsu in his hand was covered with a layer of black Ryotsu. Boom! A huge blue beam of light shot directly at Ichigo. Ichigo's eyes narrowed, and Tensei-Zanjetsu in his right hand slashed, crescent moon. Suddenly, a black crescent-like slash filled the entire sky, and the blue Sero was directly hit. This slash disappeared without a trace after being hit, and then attacked the village. What a terrifying slash! Byakuya Kuchiki, who was watching the battle, said silently in his heart. It's really scary, and although Zanpakuto's ability is single, the purest one should be the most powerful, and that's the case now. Powerful power, I don't know in a few years, I'm afraid. Kurosaki Ichigo, what kind of person are you? Why are you awakening this kind of Zanpakuto? Even the Kurosaki clan in the Soul Society did not have this kind of Zanpakuto. Shoo! Muramasa had a hard time dodging Ichigo's slash. Although he was still hit by half of his body, he recovered under high-speed regeneration, CGBE, and Ichigo's figure had disappeared again. In Muramasa's eyes, Muramasa didn't dare to stay where he was, so he immediately left the spot and moved to the left, while searching for Ichigo's figure, but Ichigo just happened to appear to Muramasa's left, just like Muramasa slammed into Ichigo directly. In the same way, a smile appeared on the corner of Ichigo's mouth. It's unfortunate. Tensei-Zanjetsu in his right hand raised it high, and then cut it down suddenly. Crescent Moon Skychong. A huge black arc-shaped blade suddenly shot out. Muramasa wanted to hide, but it was too late, because Ichigo launched the attack when Muramasa was completely unprepared. How could it be possible that Muramasa had a chance to dodge? On Muramasa's body, a huge cloud of smoke covered the entire sky. Did you kill it? Long Gui raised his head slightly and looked at the situation in front of him. No, not yet, Ishida Yulong said. I saw that the village in front of me seemed to have changed, and I saw that the village was covering his head with his hands and screaming constantly. At the same time, the Ryotsu on his body continued to strengthen, but it seemed very chaotic. Suddenly, I saw a mass of black Ryotsu completely covering Muramasa, and slowly this mass of black Ryotsu began to expand, forming a sphere, and then solidified. I saw a huge red and white sphere appear in front of the crowd. What is this? Ichigo and everyone present looked at the huge sphere in front of them. Although they knew it wasn't a good thing, their hearts were full of doubts. This sphere is constantly expanding towards all directions. Ichigo is holding Tensei-Zanjetsu, and all the Tensei-Zanjetsu are Ichigo's Ryotsu. Whatever you are, as long as you destroy you. Ichigo is holding Tensei-Zanjetsu. Suddenly cut down, crescent moon clash. A huge black-red curved blade shot towards the huge sphere. When it hit the sphere, the huge curved blade gave a slight pause, and then it was directly absorbed. What? Ichigo was shocked, but at this moment, it seemed to absorb Ichigo's huge Ryotsu. So his expansion speed suddenly increased a little bit. Ichigo was unprepared for a moment, and was directly stuck by the huge sphere. And then Ichigo was not completely after defending, he was directly sucked into the body by the huge sphere, but when he was sucked in, he smiled and said, it's really troublesome. Chapter 147. Hollow 5. After the sphere absorbed Ichigo, it paused slightly and stopped expanding, but then it sprayed out countless black mucus. Jillian, let alone Ishida Yulong and the others, even Byakuya Kuchiki and Senbon Sakura were secretly shocked, because the number was too many, and it was still increasing. The Jillian group takes the sphere as the center and walks around. Damn it. Ishida Yulong looked at Jillian, who was scattered around, and said, these Manos Grandes must be stopped. Otherwise, once these Manos Grandes are allowed to enter Karakura town, it will immediately cause huge casualties. Let's scatter, Byakuya Kuchiki and Senbon Sakura said at the same time, and then the two of them rushed directly into the Jillian group. Countless sakura petals were flying around them, and then with a wave of their hands, the sakura petals wrapped a Jillian's face live, and after rotating twice, the sakura petals attacked the other Jillian, and the previous Jillian, whose entire head had been smashed, disappeared together with the body. However, although the attack power of Byakuya Kuchiki and Senbon Sakura is very high and the attack speed is very fast, they can only go in one direction of the tarantula, and they can do nothing in other directions. Because of the previous battle with Hibiki, he had serious injuries, and Ryotsu had some shortcomings, so even if he joined forces with Senbon Sakura, he could only block one direction, but these Jillians were centered on the sphere of Muramasa's incarnation. spreading in all directions. Even if Byakuya Kuchiki blocked one direction, Jillian in the other 7 directions couldn't block it. After all, Kuchiki and Senbon Sakura couldn't be separated. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ishida Yulong raised the energy bow in his hand, shot an arrow through Jillian's head, and then drew the bow and arrow again. Jillian is no more vain than those scumbags, although Jillian is only a low-level scorpion, but compared to those scorpions, Jillian the strength is hundreds of thousands of times theirs. If Ishida Yulong uses the Rain of Light again, he is afraid. 0. I am afraid that it will take a certain amount of shooting to kill Jillian. In this case, the consumption of Ryatsu will be huge and the loss will not be worth the loss, so Ishida Yulong chooses to shoot one by one, so that Ishida Yulong can use the greatest strength. Gathered on one arrow, each shot out is capable of killing a Manos Grande. And Yoruichi also punched those Jillians one by one, but there were still too many. No, Orihime said from the side. The number of Manos Grande is too much, and sooner or later it will threaten Karakura town. Ishida, what can you do? 35. Our number is too small. Ishida Yulong shook his head slightly, and Kurosaki is also wrapped in this strange sphere. If Kurosaki is there, then with his Zanjetsu, his speed will reach the limit. It would also be easy to deal with these Manos Grande, at least be able to block one more direction, but now the Kurosaki is wrapped in this sphere. Moreover, Kurosaki also attacked this sphere with the crescent moon before. The attack power of the crescent moon was very powerful, but it turned out to be absorbed. Obviously, this sphere can absorb Ryatsu's attack, so if you use Ryatsu's skills to attack at a long distance, I'm afraid it's not a good idea, and when Ichigo touches it, Ichigo also absorbs 3. Obviously, this sphere is not afraid of physical attacks. Damn, now is not the time to think about it, let's kill the Manos Grande around first. Ishida Yulong opened the energy bow in his hand and aimed it at a hollow, but his heart was dark. Said, just after the sphere absorbed Kurosaki's crescent moon and Kurosaki, it stopped to expand. Could it be that although this sphere can absorb the crescent moon, it can't be used immediately? Oops! Suddenly a classical sliding door appeared in the air, and then slowly opened. More than 10 people appeared from the door, the current 3 people. One of them looked like an upright dog-shaped beast, dressed in Captain Yori. The word, 7, written on the woven means he is the captain of the 7th Division, Komamura Sajin. He was followed by a man with a flame erupting from his mouth and a long ring of flame erupting on his body. The other is a little boy with only white hair, but also wearing Captain Haori, who is obviously Hitsugaya Dashiro, captain of the 10th Division. Behind him, a handsome young man with green hair followed behind him, but this young man's hands and feet were carved out of ice, which was his Zanpakuto, Hiranmaru. The last one is a petite but very fast and agile 2nd Division captain, Shibi. She is the only one who can catch up with Yoruichi in speed. Of course, she needs to be in a state of instant openness. Next to Broken B was a girl the size of an elf in a different picture. It is Suzumaki. Advertisement behind their 3 captains. There are many people. Matsumoto Rangaku, who is a big breast, and Hineka, who is a cat girl. Hinamori Momo, who is a childhood friend of Hitsugaya Dashiro, and Feimei, who is a girl in a kimono. Madarei Mikaku, who is a big bald head, and Hazukumaru, who is a burly man. A Yasugawa Yumachika and the glass-colored peacock, who are not far away from Madarei Mikaku. The taciturn Kirichizoru and the helper, who is carrying a huge iron ball. The fat man Omeda Marichio and the fat man Zanpakuto 5-shaped head. This is a little bit. Pass. Abarai Renji, who had red hair and looked like a bad boy, stood behind the 3 vice-captains, but stood in front of all the vice-captains. Beside him stood a female baboon and a snake-tailed child. The chains were entangled. At this time, a woman in a white kimono held a white knife and walked towards Byakuya Kuchiki. There was a long ribbon on the handle of the knife, which seemed to sprinkle a little bit as she moved. The ray of light is unusually beautiful, and she is the most beautiful Zanpakuto, Soda no Shirayuki, of the Ice and Snow Department of the Soul Society. A black figure followed behind her. An onion head is clearly Rukia Kuchiki, the owner of Soda no Shirayuki. Abarai Renji looked at Ishida Yulong and Inoue Orihime and said, Yo, long time no see. By the way, what about Mr. Kurosaki? Why didn't you find him? Well, forget it, then leave it to us. Zanpakuto's hypnosis has been solved, and there will be a steady stream of support from the Soul Society. Ho ho ho. Jillian's roar suddenly spread throughout the sky. Everyone stopped, raised their heads slightly, and looked at the source of the sound, only to see a huge gap suddenly opened in the sky. Jillian's head poked out from the gap. Ask for flowers. It should have been attracted by this sphere. Byakuya Kuchiki looked at the huge sphere on the ground and said, This sphere was transformed by Muramasa after absorbing countless Jillians and voids, and he has been constantly expanding. After Mr. Kurosaki's crescent moon and Kurosaki Ichigo himself, the expansion stopped, but then you opened the gate of piercing, and the black cavity was also opened. Obviously, this sphere has the ability to attract Jillian. It's all released from this sphere. Idiot, is it possible to do such a thing? Broken B looked at the actions of Byakuya Kuchiki and Senbon Sakura. No, if there is such a huge Ryatsu, maybe it can be done. Hitsugaya Dashiro said, Bankai Dagoran Hiranmaru. Hitsugaya Dashiro's body is like wearing an ice dragon's armor, and Hiranmaru is a direct incarnation. He became an ice dragon, and then came to Byakuya Kuchiki and Senbon Sakura's side respectively, and launched an attack directly at Heichang, both of whom burst into blue light at the same time. But, Captain, what should I do? Matsumoto Rangaku asked with some doubts. Master. Senbon Sakura appeared behind Byakuya Kuchiki. Byakuya Kuchiki nodded slightly, then stretched out his hand slightly. Zanpakuto appeared behind him. Senbon Sakura's behavior was exactly the same as Byakuya Kuchiki. And the two released Zanpakuto in their hands at the same time. Zanpakuto fell and disappeared out of thin air, and then the countless huge blades behind Byakuya Kuchiki and Senbon Sakura came out. Bankai Senbon Sakura Kageyoshi, then the countless huge blades behind the two people turned into countless sakura petals. And Byakuya Kuchiki and Senbon Sakura stretched out their hands slightly at the same time. Sakura flower directly slammed into the huge black cavity in the sky. With the attack of the bone refining force, the black cavity that was continuously expanding immediately slowed down the expansion, but still could not stop. The countless jillion in the black cavity were constantly drilling. They came out and fell to the ground, and both Byakuya Kuchiki and Senbon Sakura glowed pink, and it was clear that the two of them had pushed their Ryotsu to the limit. How is it possible that Mr. Kurosaki actually? Hitsugaya Dashiro said, but now is not the time to get to the bottom of it, and Byakuya Kuchiki, you have been assisting Muramasa before, according to the commander's command, this matter will be brought to you by yourself. Chief Captain Yamamoto Motonuzai Shigekuni explained that the immediate problem must be solved first. Damn it, the black cavity has been opened, and it's so big. Ishida Yulong looked at the huge black cavity in the sky, equivalent to Shinigami's piercing gate or Arankar. The holes that ripped through the sky were called black. However, the black cavity opened by Arankar leads directly to the Suya Palace, and the road in the middle is called Breaking the Realm, same as Shinigami going to Soul Society, and Zayushu is just hiding in a small different space. But why is the black cavity suddenly opened? Broken Bee looked at the huge black cavity in the sky and said, and this black cavity was only opened after we arrived. Why are there so many jillions on the ground? Immediately find a way to bet on a black tongue, otherwise, Menos Grande will continue to come from Hueco Mundo, from afar, Hitsugaya said immediately. Chapter 148. Closing one, a beam of light of different colors shot up into the sky and shot directly above the black cavity. All the Shinigami and Zanpakuto who came to this world showed their full Ryotsu and began to suppress the black cavity. In this case, it seems that I can't be lazy. Ishida Yulong looked at the actions of Shinigami and Zanpakuto in the sky, and suddenly opened the spiritual bow in his hand. 7 measuring arrows appeared on the spiritual bow. He took a deep breath and said, 7-star luminary sun, released his fingers at the same time, and the 7 energy arrows shot out, respectively, towards the 7 jillions. Looking at it from a distance, the 7 energy arrows just formed the shape of the Big Dipper. The energy arrows reflect a strong light, which makes people unable to face them directly, just like the light of the sun. The 7-star luminary lives up to its name, and the puff poo poo only hears 7 soft sounds, and the 7 energy arrows hit the 7 jillions, and then I saw these 7 jillions disappearing silently in their entire body, as if they had never appeared in the first place, as if the stars in the sky disappeared silently after dawn. Ishida, you are so amazing. May 17th. Orihime looked at Ishida Yulong with a look of surprise and said, I killed 7 Menos Grandes at once. Then Orihime raised his head slightly and pondered, but if it's Ichigo, I should be able to beat more Menos Grande. Ishida Yulong looked confused. He wanted to say something, but he knew that he couldn't say Orihime at all. After the group experienced the Soul Society, he was very clear, so after hesitating for a while, he decided not to complain to Orihime, and opened the spiritual bow in his hand again. The black cavity in the sky is constantly shrinking, because a group of Shinigami and Zanpakuto's Ryotsu are constantly suppressing the black cavity back. On the ground, Ishida Yulong is constantly shooting Menos Grande Killian, just 7-star day. Although the power is huge, the burden on the fingers is not small. After only opening the bow a few times, bright red blood beads have already appeared on Ishida Yulong's fingers. Glancing at the blood beads on his fingers, Ishida Yulong shook his head secretly and said, it seems that I really can't use this move continuously, and I haven't even exerted 30% of the power of this move. It looks like I'm going back. After that, I have to find a guide to strengthen the training. Such thoughts flashed in my heart, but Ishida Yulong pulled the spiritual bow again without the slightest pause. Yoruichi was surprised when he saw Yulong Ichigo's attack, and then continued to kill Jillian, but when he looked at the sphere, there was still a flash of worry, thinking, what's wrong, Ichigo, why hasn't he come out yet? Ichigo was sucked into the body by the huge sphere. Ichigo lost consciousness for a moment. It seemed like a moment, but it seemed like a long time. Ichigo opened his eyes, but the situation in front of him made Ichigo stunned for a moment, because in front of him it is a sea, and countless stone pillars stand in the sea, some large and small, and some stone pillars have a radius of more than 100 meters, as if there was once a glorious place here, but it has become the current one under the erosion of time. Like ruins. This is. Ichigo muttered while standing on a stone pillar looking around. Suddenly, the sound of boom sounded, and the entire ground shook. Ichigo looked at it and saw that the stone pillar in the distance suddenly burst, and then sank into the sea. It turned out to be the spiritual world of Kuchiki Kayukawa. Ichigo said calmly, and then Ichigo looked indifferently in one direction. Muramasa's figure appeared in front of Ichigo, holding a Zanpakuto in his hand. Looking at Ichigo and smiling, he said, "Kurosaki Ichigo, I didn't expect you to be here." At this time, Muramasa was just like the first Muramasa Ichigo met, not the virtual Muramasa after he came to the world. "Muramasa, I didn't expect to see you here." Ichigo looked at Muramasa and said, "In that case, this is indeed the spiritual world of Shangha." "Yes, to be honest, I don't know why I came here again." Muramasa looked at Ichigo in the sky and said, "Perhaps Shangha wants me to kill you here in the end." Muramasa said directly. He rushed towards Ichigo. Zanpakuto in his hand looked very cunningly at the sole of Ichigo's left foot. "Stop, Muramasa?" Ichigo didn't want to fight Muramasa, not because of other things, but because of Muramasa's heart for Hikari. His persistent and desperate behavior towards Hikari made Ichigo have a great feeling. If it was Hollow's Muramasa, Ichigo had no choice but to raise Tensei-Zanjetsu in his hand, but now it is Muramasa under normal circumstances. Ichigo didn't want to fight him, so Ichigo avoided the village positive attack. Advertisement. Huh. Muramasa kept his hands. Ichigo had a very fast speed in Bankai's state. Ichigo easily dodged Muramasa's attack, dodging a dozen moves in a row, but Muramasa didn't show the slightest thought of stopping, so Ichigo could only hold Tensei-Zanjetsu in his hand and slashed. With the sound of dang, Tensei-Zanjetsu intersected with Zanpakuto in Muramasa's hand, giving off a crisp figure. Ichigo did not use all his strength, and only Tensei-Zanjetsu in his hand. The chang 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 blade kept intersecting. Ichigo and Muramasa neither took advantage. The two knives pressed against each other. Muramasa held Zanpakuto in both hands and continued to exert strength. Kurosaki Ichigo. Your strength surprised me. You can be so powerful with only one hand, and without using all your strength. Already with me it's hard to tell the winner. If you use all your strength, it should be more unpredictable. But Kurosaki Ichigo, the strength of your one hand is not comparable to the strength of my two hands. If you continue to not use all your strength, I am afraid you will lose. Give it to me. Kurosaki Ichigo. Muramasa, I don't want to fight with you. Shangha is dead, and everything should have ended. Ichigo felt the power from Tensei-Zanjetsu with Muramasa. Ichigo blocked it with a little force, and then beat him back. No, it is because Kayukawa is dead that we have to fight. Kurosaki Ichigo. The village is looking at Kurosaki Ichigo and said, Kinkyo is dead, as his Zanpakuto. I have no meaning to survive, but Kyoka is dead. It's too lonely for the river to die alone. So Kurosaki Ichigo, you and I go to accompany him. Muramasa. Ichigo looked at Muramasa and said angrily, Idiot, why do you want to cater to Shangha like this? Zanpakuto was born in the soul of Shinigami. The two sides are of one mind, and then they identify with each other, communicate with each other, and finally reach the same mind. The realm of the same body, each other can give everything for each other. This is the relationship Zanpakuto and Shinigami should have. A very special, but most important companion, not Zanpakuto who just caters to Shinigami. In this case, there is no two minds at all, and before Shangha was sealed, you could no longer hear his voice, which proves that Shangha has already denied you, and you have worked so hard to help him solve it. After opening the seal, he even broke your body. He did not regard you as a companion at all. You are a servant in his heart. No, not even a servant. He just regards you as a punching bag, a piece of garbage. Muramasa paused slightly. His eyes were slightly hesitant, but then Muramasa's eyes firmed. Zanpakuto itself is just a prop of Shinigami. What should Shinigami think of Zanpakuto? That is Shinigami. My own problem. Muramasa said with a sudden force, and pushed Ichigo out directly. 1.4 His body suddenly swung up, then opened his left hand, and a gust of wind blew, but there was no change in Ichigo's eyes. But Ichigo in the sea below him Muramasa, countless arms appeared, and these arms stretched infinitely, directly catching Ichigo's shadow reflected in the sea. It's useless, Muramasa, I've already seen your tricks clearly. Ichigo's figure disappeared instantly, and in the sea below, Ichigo's shadow also disappeared, and these arms naturally lost their function. Ichigo appeared behind Muramasa and Tensei-Zanjetsu in his right hand suddenly slashed, sword press. Muramasa immediately grabbed to the side, and at the same time opened his left hand again, but the target of Ichigo's sword press was not Muramasa from the beginning, but the sea under the two people's feet. With a boom, Ichigo's sword pressure directly broke the sea. The huge force made the seawater rush towards both sides, and the seawater under the two people's feet disappeared directly. Humph! Muramasa gritted his teeth. There was no reflection in the water, his moves naturally couldn't be used, and Muramasa had already fallen to the worst in this battle. Chapter 149. Closing 2. Stop it, Muramasa. Ichigo held Tensei-Zanjetsu tightly in his right hand to hold Zanpakuto in Muramasa's hand and said, Now you are not my opponent at all. Shangha is dead, and you have no reason to fight. You who have no reason to fight can't be my opponent. No, I won't lose, I haven't fully exerted my power yet. Muramasa rushed towards Ichigo. You be *********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** chopped it down. With a huh sound, Tensa Zangetsu chopped off Muramasa's body, but Muramasa's figure turned into nothingness. Pucci, Ichigo felt a sharp pain in his back. Ichigo instantly disappeared and appeared on a stone pillar below. Blood dripped from his back, and he raised his head slightly to look at Muramasa standing high in the sky. Kurosaki Ichigo, Although your strength is strong, you fell into my ability from the beginning. Muramasa looked at Ichigo and said, in my ability, your 5 senses have been completely disturbed by me. You can't find where I am right. Really? Ichigo responded, then looked at Muramasa and closed his eyes slightly. But Muramasa, although you disturbed my 5 senses, have you forgotten? With my strength, you can disturb me. What? You lost this battle from the start. 26. Shut up! Muramasa shouted loudly, and then suddenly rushed towards Ichigo, although Ichigo clearly felt that Muramasa was right in front of his eyes, but Ichigo closed his eyes and used Ryotsu to perceive. In front of Ichigo, Muramasa raised Zanpakuto in his hand and slashed towards Ichigo, but Ichigo, who had closed his eyes, turned around and turned his back to Muramasa, and slashed the Tensei-Zanjetsu in his hand suddenly, with a sound of, dang. Tensei-Zanjetsu after cutting down, Muramasa's figure appeared. He barely blocked Tensei-Zanjetsu with Zanpakuto in his hand, and Muramasa behind Ichigo turned into a phantom and disappeared. Dang dang dang, Ichigo kept waving Tensei-Zanjetsu with his right hand, but Muramasa could only barely block Tensei-Zanjetsu's attack with Zanpakuto in his hand. Kurosaki Ichigo is really scary. Muramasa blocked Ichigo's attack while he silently thought in my mind. As I said, you have no chance of winning this fight, Ichigo said to him with his eyes closed. Hey, Muramasa said, looking at Ichigo, this battle isn't over yet, and as I said, Kurosaki Ichigo, I'm not going to lose. I haven't fully exerted my power yet. Time is running out. The vain resentment that has been swallowed up by him for a long time is constantly resisting his power. I'm afraid it won't be long before he will become completely vain. Ichigo thought to himself, and his power is in continue to consume in the battle with me, this will speed up his hollow. Enough, Muramasa, Ichigo shouted loudly. You save a little strength to fight against your empty resentment. Long-winded, Muramasa said loudly, and at the same time raised Zanpakuto in his hand and pointed at Ichigo. I said, the battle is not over yet, I will not lose. Said Muramasa again raising Zanpakuto in his hand towards Ichigo. Ichigo chops over. Advertisement Ichigo thought. There is no time to entangle with him, the surroundings are already collapsing. Once it collapses completely, and I can't leave in time, I am afraid I will be locked here forever, although I can go out, but I don't want to do unnecessary trouble, things. Muramasa, you will not become empty, Ichigo raised Tensei-Zanjetsu in his hand and shouted at Muramasa. I believe in you, Muramasa, according to your dedication to Hibiki, you will not become empty. Yes, right? Then Tensei-Zanjetsu in Ichigo's hand slashed down, crescent moon. Tien Chong. The huge black blade slashed down suddenly. Muramasa didn't have time to hide, he could only raise the Zanpakuto in his hand with a loud boom. I saw that the black blade directly destroyed a huge stone pillar in the distance, and the village was falling from the air, and with a crashing sound, the village fell directly into the sea. Ichigo didn't have the full force just now, and when he sent the crescent moon, Ichigo took back the three-pointer Ryotsu. The collapse of the spiritual world has begun to approach, because the village is here, so this place has become the most central location. I should go too. Once the village is completely empty, then the entrenched in the world will be that huge spiritual ball will explode, and the entire Karakura town may be destroyed at that time. For this reason, I must leave this place early, and then go to the present world to prepare and protect Karakura town. Ichigo looked at the place where Muramasa was sinking and shouted loudly. Hey, Muramasa, Muramasa, don't pretend to be dead, come out quickly. Muramasa, Muramasa. Muramasa, Muramasa. A voice suddenly popped out of Muramasa's heart, and a thought popped into Muramasa's mind. Is someone calling me? Is it a hallucination? Yes, Shangha is dead, it is impossible for anyone to make a sound in my soul. Hey, there is still such an illusion at this time. The mask is taking shape. Ichigo was slightly startled, and then Ryotsu appeared on his body, and black Ryotsu appeared on Tensei-Zanjetsu and the hilt on his left hand. Seeing that the surroundings began to collapse, damn, Muramasa, you be asterisk 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 D. -517 Protector didn't finish speaking. Ichigo was about to leave, after all, Ichigo still had to deal with the spiritual ball in the world. With a sound of boom, the sea suddenly exploded, and Muramasa's figure suddenly flew out. When Muramasa's figure appeared, the speed of the surrounding collapse suddenly slowed down. As expected of Muramasa, he has the will to survive again under such circumstances, otherwise I'm afraid he would have been completely hollowed. Ichigo thought to himself and began to relax a little. Looks like it's the last resort. Muramasa suddenly tore off the mask that had already formed on his face, and a purple Ryotsu emerged from his body. This Ryotsu was no smaller than Ichigo, who was not using his full strength now. The voice of Muramasa resounded in Muramasa's heart again. It's not an illusion. Such a thought suddenly flashed in Muramasa's mind, and then he closed his eyes and opened them again, rushing towards the sea above. Muramasa, why did you take this step? That guy has long since denied you, didn't he? Ichigo looked at Muramasa and shouted loudly. You should have known it long ago, but you still want to make noise. The seal of the river has been working hard so far. Why? Not because you want to connect with Shangha. Want to let Shangha admit you? Shinigami and Zanpakuto, you know this relationship better than anyone. Any Zanpakuto, don't you? You're not qualified to teach me a lesson, Muramasa said, and at the same time some white matter began to appear on his face. Muramasa kept sinking towards the depths of the sea. He opened his eyes slightly and looked at the bright sea surface and said silently in his heart. I lost to Kurosaki Ichigo, but yes, it is normal to lose. Here, the sound can't reach it, and the sound from outside can't get in at all. If Shangha and I can be the same as before, how great would it be, no matter where I am. His voice will be directly on the sounds from the depths of my soul. Nothing, let alone seawater, not even a barrier can stop Shinigami's call to Zanpakuto. Hibiki, why did you deny me? Why? Unfortunately, no one could answer Muramasa's question. Muramasa closed his eyes slightly, his consciousness gradually blurred, and the seawater began to pour into his mouth. Chapter 150. Closing 3. Zanpakuto was born in the soul of Shinigami. Both sides are of the same mind, and then they identify with each other, communicate with each other, and finally reach the realm of one mind and one body, and they can give everything for each other. This is the relationship that Zanpakuto and Shinigami should have. A very special, but most important companion. The figure of Ichigo suddenly resounded in Muramasa's mind, and suddenly Muramasa's Ryotsu paused, and then gathered again. Damn, it's ironic. Muramasa kept gathering Ryotsu, looking at Ichigo from a distance, but his heart was full of helplessness. I can't hear the sound of Shangha, but this guy's voice is constantly in my heart. Sounds in the soul. This is really ironic. Muramasa. Ichigo shouted loudly. The surrounding space had completely collapsed, and there was only a distance of less than 20 meters around the two people, and on the heads of the two people, countless light spots were falling down continuously. Debris of space collapse. Come on, Kurosaki Ichigo. Muramasa shouted loudly, then charged directly at Ichigo. Before I become a virtual. You won't become empty. I believe in you, Muramasa. Ichigo began, charging towards Muramasa at the same time. The distance between the two disappeared in an instant. Ichigo held Tensei-Zanjetsu with a dang. Tensei-Zanjetsu and Zanpakuto in Muramasa's hands collided fiercely. The two huge Ryotsu collided directly, and the huge Ryotsu moved towards the surroundings. Spread out. Directly destroy everything around. Damn. Muramasa's entire body was knocked out and fell directly into the sea. Although Muramasa's Ryotsu is not weaker than Ichigo, he still has no resistance in the face of Ichigo, because the battle is not something Ryotsu can decide. It's time to leave now, Ichigo said and rushed towards the place where the village had fallen. Muramasa. Muramasa's body was falling towards the depths of the sea, but at the same time deep in his soul, Ichigo's voice kept ringing. It's too long. Muramasa said loudly in his heart. Your voice is so clear. Damn it. I don't want to hear your voice at all, and this feeling. It must be the feeling that the souls of Shinigami and Zanpakuto are truly one. Damn, I've never experienced it in Shangha, but I didn't expect to experience this kind of feeling in you. Damn. Kurosaki Ichigo, who the hell are you? 99 Thinking of this, Muramasa slightly stretched out a hand and said silently in his heart. No matter what, it's good to feel this feeling a little more. At the same time, he closed it slightly. Pop, one hand grabbed Muramasa's outstretched hand. Muramasa was startled and suddenly opened his eyes, only to see Ichigo grabbing his arm in front of him, and said silently in his heart, Kurosaki Ichigo. Okay, don't talk about those that are missing. After Ichigo finished speaking, he released his Ryotsu. The soaring Ryotsu made Muramasa beside him stunned. Seeing this scene, Muramasa said, so you have been it didn't work at all. Advertisement, that's right, otherwise I'll bully you too much, won't it? Ichigo said very easily, and after Ryotsu reached a point, Ichigo slashed with Tensei-Zanjetsu, and a black hole was cut open. Seeing Muramasa here surprised, then Ichigo pulled him and rushed in. After Ichigo and Muramasa entered, the space completely collapsed. Fortunately, Ichigo took a step faster, otherwise, Ichigo would be sealed in this space forever. In this world, after all the Shinigami Zanpakuto have sealed the black cavity, they want to get rid of the huge spiritual orb entrenched in it, but the surrounding Manos Grande are not there to watch. Those Jillians are not there to see the black cavity they are sealing. They were already preparing Sero at the time of the Sero, but because of Ishida Yulong's constant movements, they couldn't launch smoothly, because Ishida Yulong shot at Jillian who was about to release Sero every time. Although Jillian is called Manos Grande, in fact it is only the lowest level of Manos Grande. Their intelligence is very low and they can't think at all, let alone how to make it more reasonable, but the number of Jillian is too large. Even Ishida Yulong couldn't completely block it, but even if it was missed, it wasn't a big deal for Shinigami and Zanpakuto who were present. Especially after the black cavity was closed, all the Shinigami Zanpakuto focused their attention on the huge spiritual ball. Just because of the countless Jillians around, all the Shinigami present immediately focused on it after thinking about it. Jillian around. They wanted to get rid of Jillian around them first, and they were going to deal with the huge spirit sphere, because this spirit sphere hadn't changed for a long time. The four captains present, Byakuya Kuchiki, Hitsugaya Dashiro, Broken B, Komamura Sajin, plus the vice captains Aburai Renji, Matsumoto Rangaku, Omeda Marichio, Hinamori Momo as well as Madarei Mikaku and Yasugawa Yumachika, and their Zanpakuto. He started after cleaning up the surrounding Jillian. Jillian is only the lowest Manos Grande, and it is not enough to see in front of them. Almost one move is the disappearance of a Jillian. It's amazing. Inoue Orihime looked at the actions of Shinigami and Zanpakuto who were present, and said with a look of surprise. Everyone is amazing. Irisawa Tatsuki touched Inoue Orihime's hair and said, am I not amazing? Long Gui is also very powerful, Inoue Orihime said very directly, and Irisawa Tatsuki also smiled when he heard this. At this time, Rukia Kuchiki came to Irisawa Tatsuki's side and said apologetically to her. Sorry, Long Gui, I have implicated you again. 35 Hearing this, Irisawa Tatsuki hugged Rukia Kuchiki very rudely. Said, I'm going to be angry if you see things like this. Rukia Kuchiki also smiled and nodded when she heard this. All the Shinigami and Zanpakuto of Shu gathered around the huge sphere of spirits, and Jillian around was completely eliminated. All that's left is this gigantic spirit ball. But this way, Rukia Kuchiki didn't have time to talk here anymore. Rukia Kuchiki smiled a little, and then suddenly jumped up and stood behind Byakuya Kuchiki. At this time, the originally huge spiritual ball swelled again, and all the Shinigami were stunned for a while, but a crack appeared on the spiritual ball that had just started to expand, and in a short moment, the ball was covered with all over the place. Crack. Hitsugaya Toshiro looked at the spiritual ball in front of him and said in shock. Damn it, the spiritual ball is about to explode. Once the spiritual ball explodes, then with the spiritual ball as the center, half, Li Dezhou, 1,000 diameter. Everything within a kilometer will be raised to the ground by this gigantic Ryatsu. What, a radius of 1,000 kilometers? Ishida Yuryu exclaimed, so doesn't that include the entire city of Karakura? No, not only Karakura city, but also several cities will be affected. Long Gui also heard Hitsugaya Toshiro's words, and she said with a serious expression. If this is the case, then the number of deaths will exceed more than a few millions. Damn, it's too late to even set up the barrier. Broken Bee gritted his teeth and said, and everyone has already used up the Ryatsu who looked at the black cavity just after closing the black cavity. Now I am afraid that it is impossible to use Ryatsu to protect one direction. It's a little hard to live by myself. At this time, the cracks on the spiritual ball began to expand, and at the same time, a strong light was emitted. Everyone could not even open their eyes in the light. The strong light made everyone close their eyes, and when they closed their eyes at that instant, the crack on the spiritual ball expanded to its limit. Chapter 151. Closing 4 with a boom, the entire spirit ball suddenly disappeared, as if it had never appeared before. It just disappeared without an explosion. Still no explosion, disappeared within half a second before the explosion. What's going on? Broken Bee looked at the situation in front of her and asked in a daze. After all, the Ryatsu who had just emerged from the spirit ball was much stronger than her, but such a huge Ryatsu disappeared without a trace at the moment of the explosion. Ichigo. Yoruichi discovered the figure of Ichigo inside the spirit ball for the first time. Although she was farther than the others, she was the first to discover it. Mr. Kurosaki. Mr. Kurosaki. Rukia Kuchiki and Aburai Renji fell down at the same time, standing beside Ichigo. Ichigo put Muramasa on the ground. Hey, Muramasa, are you alright? Cough cough. Muramasa spit out a lot of blood from his mouth, and at the same time blood flowed from his eyes, like blood and tears. Muramasa raised his head slightly and looked at Ichigo. If I am your Zanpakuto, if it is my master, then I am afraid that I will not become what I am today. I am so envious, your Zanpakuto, they can blend in soul with you as the master. One day, Muramasa interrupted Ichigo. One day, I will also be able to blend with the soul of my master, I believe. When the time comes, Kurosaki Ichigo, I will not be so easily defeated by you. Yeah, Ichigo nodded slightly and said, I'm looking forward to that day. I won't be releasing water by then. Hee. Mujung showed a smile, but the smile disappeared as soon as it appeared, not because the smile disappeared, and Mujung turned into a purple 517 phantom, and then he disappeared. A purple phantom Zanpakuto appeared. Zanpakuto shattered directly, broken into several pieces, and then a purple light shot into the sky. Huh. Ichigo let out a deep breath without any expression on his face. Although Ichigo didn't know Muramasa's ending at the beginning, he had already guessed it. Ichigo watched too much in his previous life. It's just that Ichigo is powerless to change anything. It's not just that Ichigo doesn't know the plot, it's more of Muramasa's persistence. When Shangha was sealed 100 years ago, he should have been sealed along with Shangha, but he know, although I don't know the reason, but since that time, he has been living alone. For Zanpakuto, this is the biggest sadness, so for hundreds of years, Muramasa has been thinking about saving Muramasa, because this is the only meaning of his life. If he gives up on this, then Muramasa himself will not be able to find the idea of continuing to live. Perhaps when the village was unblocking Shangha, he had already thought of this result. He might have known that Shangha would attack him directly. Being able to enter Shinigami's spiritual world and manipulate other Zanpakuto to betray Shinigami, this proves that Muramasa is very good at grasping the psychology of Shinigami and Zanpakuto. For his master, Shangha's psychology, I am afraid Muramasa knows better than anyone, but even if that's right, Muramasa still hasn't changed his original intention in the slightest, because unblocking CGBE, Shangha is not only what he should do as the master of Zanpakuto, but also the only meaning of his continued existence. After all, it has meaning to continue to live. I can feel it, Inoue Orihime said, standing beside Ichigo. At the end, his smile was a heartfelt, relieved smile. I could feel him from his body when he was holding me. Grief, but just now, his grief has all disappeared. Inoue Orihime's inexplicable words woke everyone up. Ichigo stretched out his hand slightly and grabbed Yoruichi's hand and said, "It's okay, I'm sorry, I'm late, and I've got you involved in these things again. I know you clearly. I don't like these things the most. Advertisement, I hope to be able to get into these things more." He shook his head slightly and said, "Because of this, I will be able to get closer to Long Wei." Arisawa Tatsuki smiled and gently hugged Inoue Orihime and said, "I'm sorry, I will practice harder in a while, I will definitely protect you next time." At this time, Ichigo was a little strange to hear this. It's not because of me that Inoue Orihime and Arisawa Tatsuki turn into lace, but it doesn't matter, as long as their women don't turn into that. Mr. Kurosaki. Rukia Kuchiki and Abarai Renji stood in front of Ichigo and Yoruichi. Ichigo smiled slightly and looked at the two people. "It's okay, Rukia Kuchiki, Abarai Renji." "Ah, nothing, but Mr. Kurosaki and Muramasa just now?" Rukia asked, looking at Ichigo. "That guy has maintained Zanpakuto's dignity from beginning to end," Ichigo said with a slight smile. "Now this guy should go to Shanghai." "Really?" Rukia nodded slightly in response. At this time, Byakuya Kuchiki appeared in front of Ichigo. He stood there with his eyes closed slightly, and suddenly a trace of water appeared in the corner of his eyes. Tears. The big iceberg Byakuya Kuchiki actually shed tears. This was the first thought of everyone present, but just when everyone came up with this idea, the sound of crashing sounded, and the pouring rain fell directly. In an instant, all the faces were covered with water stains. It turned out to be rain. Seeing this situation, everyone's hearts were relieved. It's obvious that Byakuya Kuchiki's face was also rained just now. After all, according to Byakuya Kuchiki's character, it is impossible to shed tears. Even if it is possible, it will only shed blood and tears instead of tears, but who can know the end of Byakuya Kuchiki's water stains, tears or rain? "It feels so strange," Hineka said in the rain. "I want to go back," said Feimei next to Hinamori Momo, and then her body turned into a pink light and melted into the Zanpakuto on Hinamori Momo's body. Following Feimei's actions, the other Zanpakuto also turned into a ray of light and melted into the Zanpakuto of their respective masters. "Captain," Matsumoto Rangaku said, looking at Hitsugaya Toshiro in front of him. "Advertisement, it's time to end," Hitsugaya Toshiro said. "This is the second time. Kurosaki Ichigo, thank you for your help," Byakuya Kuchiki said, turning his back on Ichigo. "Hey, thank you should also face me." Ichigo stood behind Byakuya Kuchiki and said, "And last time thank you, you were lying on a stretcher with serious injuries, you can't be normal once?" Byakuya Kuchiki ignored Ichigo and said, "Renji, let's go, we're going back." Arisawa Tatsuki nodded slightly and said, "I must come. If I don't have the support of your comrades during the battle, I will not be able to exert my full strength." Arisawa Tatsuki breathed a sigh of relief after seeing the figures of Shinigami disappear, because this matter finally came to an end, and then. "Goodbye then, Long Wei." Rukia Kuchiki looked at Arisawa Tatsuki with a slight smile and said, "Next time we will fight together." "It's okay." Rukia Kuchiki smiled softly. "If your strength is not enough, then we are your strength. Whether we fight together or not, as long as you need it, we will give it to you." Rukia Kuchiki said. He followed Byakuya Kuchiki into the gate of the world. "Yes, Captain," Abarai Renji responded immediately, then greeted Ichigo and said, "Then Mr. Kurosaki, let's say goodbye first, next time we fight that guy Aizen, let's see you again," said Abarai Renji. Renji followed Byakuya Kuchiki directly, then ran to Byakuya Kuchiki in a few steps, pulled out his Zanpakuto, and stabbed in front of him suddenly, like a key. The space in front of him fluctuated, and then a partition door appeared. The door opened automatically, actually. When the hell butterflies flew out, they each stayed in front of a Shinigami, and then one by one, the Shinigami followed the hell butterflies into the gate. It is precisely because of the support of your comrades that I will not lose." Arisawa Tatsuki nodded slightly. At the same time, the crossing gate closed and disappeared. "Really?" Ichigo was stunned for a moment, then suddenly remembered something, with a wry smile on his face, and said in his heart, "I almost forgot, now it should be Yulong who asks his father how to recover from extinction." However, his father put forward the condition that he is not allowed to have any involvement with Shinigami again. It is really troublesome to say that he and my old Shinigami are life and death friends. Ishida Yulong was silent for a while, and then he didn't say much and left directly, and also used the advanced footwork of the Quincy Master. "Ishida. He's been very indifferent recently," Orihime said from the side. "He seems to be deliberately alienating us recently." Ichigo hugged Yoruichi and looked at the others. "Okay, let's go home together." Chapter 152. After the war. Ichigo, Yoruichi, Inoue Orihime. Arisawa Tatsuki. The four slowly walked towards Karakura town, and Ichigo also came out of the state of Shinigami. After all, Yoruichi couldn't let the two girls walk alone in this deep mountain. Although Ryuki is the strongest female high school student in the country, and she is a Shinigami who doesn't have anything to turn into a Shinigami, but Yoruichi still can't rest assured. So Ichigo and Yoruichi walked slowly with them, but slowly walking, but the footsteps of the group are not slow. Ichigo took Yoruichi's hand, and Yoruichi asked at the same time, speaking of which, Orihime, why did you and Longwei come here? And it was so coincidentally that Muramasa caught him. This. Orihime said embarrassedly, I discovered this lake by accident. I thought it was very beautiful, so I took Longwei over for a picnic this time. On the way, I met a man who fell on the ground. Man, when I saw that he was seriously injured, I went to treat him, and later. I would encounter such a thing, I don't know when the food prepared by others was smashed. When he said this, Orihime's eyes a little tear came out. It took a lot of effort to make it. Especially the yokon honey sandwich, which is the people's favorite. Yokon, honey, and sandwiches. Ichigo was speechless, covering his forehead helplessly. Orihime, do you still have any ingredients in your refrigerator? There are many more. Orihime nodded vigorously and said, I can't eat it alone. But there is no seasoning. Ichigo, do you want to make something for me? 95 Orihime's eyes glowed directly, even Longwei the eyes also lit up, which reminded Ichigo of the sentence, if you want to grab a man's heart, you must first grab a man's stomach. Now this sentence is also very suitable for women. Well, I see. Ichigo nodded and said, after we go back, I will go back to my body first, then go buy some seasonings and then make them for you. Really? Yoruichi asked immediately in surprise. Ichigo touched Yoruichi's head and said, it's true, when did I lie to you? Yoruichi tilted his head and thought for a moment. No, then Yoruichi let go of Ichigo, hugged Arisawa Tatsuki and Inoue Orihime and said, Longwei, Orihime and I go back with me, and then eat the food made by Ichigo. No, I don't need it. Arisawa Tatsuki declined, she didn't want to disturb Ichigo and Yoruichi. No, I have to go. Yoruichi said, it can be a little more lively if there are many people. Advertisement Ichigo smiled and said, yeah, Longwei and Inoue, let's go together, as a chef. The happiest thing is that the meals made by yourself can be eaten by others. And the more people eat, the more motivation for the chef to cook. The bigger. And you guys are my best friends with Yoruichi. I just got back from the Soul Society, and things are settled, won't you celebrate for me? Then I'm welcome. Arisawa Tatsuki nodded slightly and said, thank you so much for the hospitality. Excuse me then. Inoue Orihime nodded solemnly. Well, then that's it. Yoruichi pulled Arisawa Tatsuki and Inoue Orihime and said, Ichigo, you should go back to your body first, and Longwei and I will go buy the seasoning first. Well, be careful. Ichigo smiled and nodded, I'll be there soon. Yoruichi pulled Longwei and the three girls away with a smile, because they were already close to the city, so Ichigo didn't go any further. Stop them. After Orihime and Longwei left, Ichigo's expression turned cold, he took a slight breath and said, come out, don't hide. Yo, long time no see, Kurosaki Ichigo. An upside-down face appeared in front of Ichigo, a ridiculous mushroom head, and because it was upside down, it suddenly appeared in front of me. If it was a timid person, I might be scared to death. Immediately, this person turned around, his feet fell on the ground, his mouth cracked to a ridiculous degree, and he wore a ridiculous mushroom head. Although it was funny, no one could underestimate this person, because he was 100 years ago, Soul Society the captain of the 5th Division, Hiriko Shinji. Is something wrong? Shinji? Ichigo asked, looking at Shinji in front of him. What is it? Hiriko Shinji looked at Ichigo, his eyes narrowed and said, Kurosaki Ichigo, you seem to have forgotten, before you left this world to go to the Soul Society, you seem to have promised me one thing? And this time Soul Society's Zanpakuto thing, why are you inserting it? I know. I've never forgotten. Ichigo looked at Hiriko Shinji and said, but I also said that I need a little time to deal with my own affairs, and I also said that even if I join your Mask Legion, I will still carry out Shinigami's responsibilities. As for the Soul Society, there are my companions there, that's enough. Advertisement katakana middle dot seeking flowers. Okay. Then I don't have a big problem. Hiriko Shinji shrugged slightly. Now there is one last question, Ichigo, when will you come to us and make a plan with us to deal with Aizen? Tomorrow. Ichigo pondered for a while and said, I'm going to accompany Yoruichi today, I'm afraid I don't have time. Come to school tomorrow, and we'll leave as soon as tomorrow's class is over. Tomorrow. Hiriko Shinji looked at Ichigo and said, I hope it will be as soon as possible, but why are you suddenly so anxious, Kurosaki? Because there's no time left, Ichigo said softly. Arrancar has already come to the world, that is to say, that guy Aizen is going to attack the world, we don't have time, and the Soul Society happened. The matter of Zanpakuto's betrayal. Against this guy Aizen, the power of the Soul Society is essential. Maybe you are hostile to the Soul Society, but if Aizen enters the world, I am afraid that you will not be able to maintain your current life. Is that so? Hiriko Shinji waved his hand casually, then looked at Ichigo and said, but Ichigo, what is your opinion on Soul Society? Truth or lies? Ichigo asked softly. Idiot, of course it's the truth, it's useless to hear lies, Hiriko Shinji said without hesitation. I don't believe both of them now, Ichigo said directly, and Hiriko Shinji laughed when he heard this, and then said, yes, that's it, that's why we want to have a relationship with you, Ichigo, before the fight starts. Okay. Hearing this, Ichigo also smiled, and then Hiriko Shinji said, then we'll see you tomorrow, Ichigo. After walking a few steps, he turned around and said, bring Yoruichi here too. Isn't she also hollow? It's gone. Hearing his words, I shook my head too, and then Shunpo also left. Next. Chapter 153. Leisurely after returning home, I missed seeing the door very much, and when I was about to push in, the door was opened. Ichigo was also very happy when he saw the people who came out, because it was Kurosaki Yuzu and Kurosaki Shihouin, and when they saw Ichigo came back, they jumped into Ichigo's arms and said, Ichigo brother, I miss you so much. Hearing this, Ichigo touched their heads and said, I miss you too. Hearing this, Kurosaki Shihouin was very dissatisfied and said to me, I don't believe what Ichigo brother said. If I miss us, why did it take so long to come back, right? Yuzu. Kurosaki Shihouin said to Kurosaki Yuzu, but Kurosaki Yuzu did not hearing Kurosaki Shihouin's words. He kept shrinking in Ichigo's arms. Okay, Yuzu, it's time to get off your brother, otherwise, you'll be laughed at by others. Ichigo said very gently, and Kurosaki Shihouin pouted. Seeing this scene Ichigo he also touched Kurosaki Shihouin's head apologetically, and Kurosaki Yuzu said in front of Kurosaki Shihouin, no, I want my brother to carry me in. Hearing what Kurosaki Yuzu said to me, I had no choice but to hold her with one hand and go in with Kurosaki Shihouin's hand with the other. After entering, I saw Kurosaki Ishin and Kurosaki Masaki lying relaxed in the yard, and I was very surprised to see me holding Kurosaki Yuzu and holding Kurosaki Shihouin and said, what are you doing, Ichigo? Yuzu, I haven't gotten off my brother yet. Kurosaki Masaki said helplessly. Hearing his mother's words, Kurosaki Yuzu had to come down. He pouted and looked at Kurosaki Masaki with dissatisfaction, which made her a little embarrassed. Ichigo, how are you? Are you hungry now? Do you want me to cook? Kurosaki Ishin said to resolve the embarrassing situation. Kurosaki Yuzu and Kurosaki Shihouin also held Ichigo's arm and said, Ichigo brother, I'll cook for you. When hearing this, Kurosaki Yuzu was somewhat dissatisfied and said, Shihouin don't learn from me, and you can't do it either. Rice. Hearing this, Kurosaki Shihouin was also angry and said, who said that? I can cook now too. Just you, it's still cooking. Kurosaki Yuzu was very disdainful, which made Kurosaki Shihouin even more angry. You. When I was about to say something, Ichigo stopped and said, okay, don't make trouble, wait a while, Longwei and Inoue are coming. I stopped when I heard this. Ichigo, is that the girl with the orange hair? Kurosaki Masaki asked, and Ichigo nodded when he heard that. Hearing this, Kurosaki Yuzu and Kurosaki Shihouin pulled me and said, there are actually guests coming, so why don't you hurry up and prepare? Ichigo had to follow them in after hearing this. And Kurosaki Masaki said to Kurosaki Ishin, do you think the two girls who are coming to our house also like our Ichigo? Hearing this, Kurosaki Ishin said proudly, as expected of me my son, has the style of my youth. Hearing this, Kurosaki Masaki said with disdain, just you, forget it. Seeing Kurosaki Masaki's eyes, Kurosaki Ishin said very sadly, don't wear it. And after Ichigo went in, they started preparing the dishes. On the other hand, Yoruichi and the others also bought back the ingredients. Advertisement. When Inoue Orihime came to Ichigo's house, she was very surprised when she saw it and said, Ichigo's house is so rich? Hearing this, Arisawa Tatsuki said, I don't know either, although I have known Ichigo since I was a child, but never came to his home. Yoruichi also explained it to them after hearing this. Ichigo is so amazing. Inoue Orihime was very surprised, and Arisawa Tatsuki said as if he had met Ichigo for the first time. I didn't expect him to have such talent. Yoruichi waited until they both sighed. Said, okay, I'm going in. Then he opened the door and went in first. Then Inoue Orihime and Arisawa Tatsuki also went in one after another. After going in, they were very impressed when they saw the things in the yard. And Kurosaki Ishin and Kurosaki Masaki went back to the other house because they didn't want to be too formal. After that, Yoruichi brought the two of them to the house where Ichigo was cooking. Yoruichi took all the seasonings to the kitchen. Ichigo looked at them and said, where are the two of them? Yoruichi smiled and said, the two of them, let's visit our house. Here Ichigo said to Kurosaki Yuzu and Kurosaki Shihouin, since there are guests coming to our house, so you two should not be busy here, let Yoruichi come. Go and introduce them to both of you. Our home. Hearing their brother's words, the Kurosaki sisters and the two directly agreed, we know. Then they walked outside. When they were almost done playing, they sat down at the dining table and watched TV. It didn't take long for Ichigo to come out with a plate of food, and an attractive aroma came out. Ichigo put the dish on the only round table. Said, come and try the jewel-fried yellow river carp. But unfortunately this carp is not a yellow river carp, and it has been frozen for several days, and the taste is no better than fresh, what a pity. When Ichigo came out with the second dish of 1.4, the carp had already been eaten up by several of them, and only one fishbone was left. When Ichigo came out, the four of them showed embarrassed smiles. Ichigo can still say what, keep doing it. By the way, if you're bored, just go to those rooms and play for a while, Ichigo said to the two of them, and the Kurosaki sisters were very excited after hearing this. Got it, and ran out. I was instantly captivated by this dish. Then, under the leadership of the Kurosaki sisters, Inoue Orihime and Arisawa Tatsuki quickly finished shopping and were taken to the game room to play games, while Ichigo and Yoruichi prepared dinner in the kitchen. That night, it was completely dark, so Ichigo went to send them both home, and when he was about to leave after sending Arisawa Tatsuki home, Arisawa Tatsuki said, "Thank you for your hospitality today, Ichigo." Heard here, Ichigo said very relaxedly. "What are you talking about? We are childhood sweethearts. I also feel that I am a little embarrassed to ask you to come to my house for so long." Arisawa Tatsuki is also very happy to hear this, and then said, "Then, next time, I will visit your uncle and aunt at your house." Hearing this, Ichigo also nodded and left. Delicious. Before Ichigo finished speaking, the Kurosaki sisters picked up a piece of fish and put it in their mouths, biting a few times, and said with a smile, her eyes narrowed into slits. "Really, isn't there a guest? I want them to eat first, don't you know?" As he said that, he flicked the foreheads of the Kurosaki sisters and the others, and then went into the kitchen, while the two of them covered their foreheads behind Ichigo and made faces. Seeing this scene, Inoue Orihime and Arisawa Tatsuki were very envious, and then at the instigation of Kurosaki sisters, they both tasted it. Chapter 154. Relax. I'm back. Ichigo opened the door of his house. Ichigo, who had just walked into the entrance, was about to change his shoes. At this time, a foot suddenly flew in front of him. "Idiot, don't you look at what time it is?" Obviously the person who spoke was Ichigo's father, Kurosaki Ishin. Although it is different from the original, Ichigo's mother is not dead yet, but it is still a joke, and it is just what Kurosaki Ishin pretends to be. The man who attacked his own son as soon as he came back. With a bang, Ichigo knocked his father down with a punch, then looked at Sha Li and Yuzu behind him and said with a smile, "It's so late, are you still asleep?" Sha Li and Yuzu were already. "I put on my pajamas, but I don't know why I didn't sleep in my room." "Brother," Yuzu looked at Ichigo and complained. "Why did you come back now? It's so late, really." Hearing Yuzu's complaint, a smile appeared on Ichigo's face. He changed his shoes, squatted slightly in front of Yuzu, put his right hand on Yuzu's hair and rubbed lightly. "Sorry, it's me. It's too late to come back, but I also want to send those sisters back." "Brother," Yuzu complained somewhat coquettishly, "don't touch other people's hair, they just washed it." Yes, Ichigo replied without the slightest sincerity, while continuing to mess with Yuzu's hair. "Are you still a little hungry, Ichigo brother?" Sha Li looked at Ichigo and said happily, "If you haven't eaten yet, Yuzu has left some food for you. If you want to eat it, you can warm it up." Ichigo nodded slightly and said, "But I'm still a little hungry now, Yuzu, please." "Brother, really?" Yuzu stretched out a hand to protect his hair, which was completely messed up by Ichigo, and walked towards the kitchen. Ichigo showed a slight smile, took out a fresh keeping bag and said, "Sha Li, I'll bring back some food, it's still warm, let's try it together." "Yes, thank you, brother Ichigo," Sha Li replied happily, then walked towards the dining table. Ichigo walked into the kitchen, and saw Yuzu heating up the food in the kitchen. Ichigo smiled slightly. "Excuse me, Yuzu, I'll bring something back. Of course, I'll eat whatever Yuzu made for me, but Yuzu, if you don't mind getting fat, you can come and eat a little together." "People don't eat if they're not hungry, and they won't gain weight even if they eat," Yuzu said loudly. Advertisement, yes. Ichigo took out a fat man and gently poured the contents of the bag into the plate. A little fragrance appeared, and it was obvious that the cake had not completely cooled down. "It smells so good, it looks like it is not completely cold yet. If it gets cold, the taste shouldn't be lost. Yuzu, do you want to eat it?" A scent penetrated into Yuzu's nose. Yuzu sniffed carefully, then turned his head and didn't look at the cake. Ichigo smiled lightly and said, "Then I'll go out first. Yuzu, if you want to eat, you have to hurry up, because if you wait a while, I'll finish it up." Then Ichigo turned and walked out of the kitchen. Ichigo came to the dinner table with a plate. Yuzu sat in front of the table. Ichigo put the cake in front of Natsumi and handed her a pair of knives and forks. "Try it, Sha Li." "Thank you, brother Ichigo." Sha Li took the knife and fork, put a piece in her mouth and chewed it carefully. Her eyes suddenly opened, and after eating the cake she smiled and looked at Ichigo and said, "It's delicious, Ichigo bro. Why is this cake so delicious? If you like it, eat more." Ichigo showed a slight smile and said, "But the main ingredient here is cream. As long as you are not afraid of gaining weight, then you can taste it." Sha Li replied slightly, but put down the chopsticks in her hand and said, "Wait, Ichigo brother, I want to wait a moment. Let Yuzu try it too. Yuzu will definitely like it too." Ichigo nodded slightly. "What would I like too?" Yuzu carried a tray with a bowl of rice, a bowl of vegetables and a bowl of soup. Ichigo stepped forward to take the tray, and Sha Li handed Yuzu a pair of knives and forks. "Try it, Yuzu, this cake is really delicious." "Really?" Yuzu said dubiously, then took the knife and fork, picked up a piece of cake, put it in his mouth, and ate the cake abruptly. "Brother," Yuzu said angrily. "Why is such a delicious cake? I just got it now, and I think I'm going to gain weight today." Yuzu's face has an angry look, but with Yuzu's face, it will only make people feel very cute, and the pouting look is cute enough to turn those pairs Luli is interested in the uncle. So cute, Kurosaki Ishin suddenly appeared in front of Yuzu, stretched out his hand to hug Yuzu, and kept rubbing Yuzu's cheek with his own face. "Yuzu, you are so cute, sleeping with dad tonight." With a bang, Ichigo directly put one foot on Kurosaki Ishin's face, kicked Kurosaki Ishin out, hugged Yuzu and looked at Kurosaki Ishin, who flew out and said, "Idiot, what are you talking about? What are you thinking? What are you going to do to your daughter?" Ichigo put Yuzu down and said, "Yuzu, you have to be careful, you are too cute, you will attract the attention of the middle-aged uncle." Advertisement, yes, I see, bro, Yuzu responded, then looked at Kurosaki Ishin, who was kicked out by Ichigo, and said, "That bro, is dad okay?" "No problem, Yuzu." Ichigo waved his hand casually. "The old man is a doctor. If there is a problem, he will treat himself, as long as he doesn't die." At this time, Kurosaki Masaki came out of the room and said, "Really, it's so late, why is it so noisy that no one can sleep?" After that, I smelled the fragrance of the cake, and joined the Kurosaki sisters and started to eat cake. After eating, Kurosaki Masaki asked, "Where did you buy this cake? It's so delicious." Hearing this, Kurosaki Yuzu said, My brother bought it." "Really, if I bought something so delicious at night, if you get fat tomorrow, I won't forgive you, brother." And Kurosaki shyly also said, "That's right, brother Ichigo, if you get fat, I will ignore you." Hearing this, Ichigo is also very helpless. "Originally you guys are so happy to eat, how could it be my fault in the end?" "This is what you bought, Ichigo?" Kurosaki Masaki asked, and Ichigo admitted, "I brought this, 517, but I didn't buy it." Hearing this, Kurosaki Yuzu was very puzzled and asked, "How did that come from?" "I made this myself." After Ichigo finished speaking, Kurosaki Yuzu and Kurosaki shyly threw themselves on me and said, "Ichigo-san, brother, you are amazing. You can even make cakes." And Kurosaki Masaki asked with some doubts, "Ichigo, even if you can do it, but where did you do it?" Hearing this, Ichigo hugged Kurosaki Yuzu and Kurosaki shyly and said, "Actually, I'm not far from our house. I have opened a cake shop far away, and those bakers were all trained by me, and I wanted to taste their craftsmanship, so I brought back a cake." Hearing this, Kurosaki Masaki said, "So that cake shop belongs to our family. No wonder they all bowed respectfully to me when I entered from there." After hearing Ichigo, "That's because I showed them pictures of my parents and Yuzu shyly and Yoruichi, so it's free as long as you go." Kurosaki Yuzu said, "Brother, you are so amazing, I really don't know what else your brother can't do." Kurosaki shyly also said, "That's right, Ichigo is like a prince, so perfect." Hear this Ichigo, he smiled and said, "Okay, don't praise me so much, I'm just studying hard, and it's so late now, and I have class tomorrow. Go back to your room and go to bed." Kurosaki Masaki remembered when he heard this. Tomorrow is Monday, so I urged Kurosaki Yuzu and Kurosaki shyly to go back to their rooms and sleep. And I also went out, took out another cake and walked towards my house. Chapter 155. Relax. And Ichigo took the cake and came to his house, and seeing that the house was not turned on, he thought that Yoruichi must have fallen asleep, so he put the cake on the dining table. And when I was going to the room to take a look, a figure jumped directly into Ichigo's arms, and when I met it, I knew it was Yoruichi, so I said, "Really? I thought you were already asleep." I kissed Yoruichi, and Yoruichi said coquettishly, "I want to give you a surprise." 99. "I don't think this is a surprise, it's a temptation," Ichigo said helplessly. Yoruichi said very charmingly after hearing it, "Then have you been seduced by me?" After that, he teased Ichigo from time to time, and Ichigo changed the subject and said, "Okay, I brought you a cake, do you want to eat some?" After talking, I walked towards the kitchen and went to the knife and fork. And Yoruichi was very funny to see this scene. Although Ichigo and Yoruichi are already a very loving couple, they still want to spoof each other from time to time, especially Yoruichi. In fact, it can't be said to be a spoof, it can be said to want to make each other closer. After Ichigo brought the knife and fork, he turned on the light, saw where Yoruichi was still standing, and said, "Come and eat a little." Then he pulled Yoruichi over and asked her to sit down and taste it. Taste. And Yoruichi was also very happy and said, "Then I'll try it." Then he picked up a piece and tasted it, and then said happily, "As expected of the cake made by my lover, it's delicious. I'm glad to hear that Ichigo is here too." Then Ichigo stopped eating after seeing that Yoruichi had eaten a little, so he asked, "What's wrong? Don't you want to eat?" Hearing Yoruichi sitting on my lap, he said coquettishly, "I don't want to eat, I won't eat anymore." "If you get fat after eating, what will you do if you don't want me?" Hearing this, Ichigo smiled helplessly and said, "How could it be? No matter how fat you become, I won't want you anymore, because you have been marked by me since you were born." Yoruichi was also moved and confused when he heard Ichigo's love words. After that, Ichigo and Yoruichi hugged each other here, and whispered love words to each other. I don't know how long they said. Ichigo said, "Okay. It's time for us to rest." He also patted Yoruichi's butt, and Yoruichi also nodded. After Ichigo and Yoruichi finished packing, they went back to the room together. Then they undressed and lay down on the bed, while Yoruichi was lying on Ichigo's chest all the time, looking at Ichigo very emotionally, and Ichigo was very happy to see this scene. By the way, tomorrow Hiriko Shinji said he would pick us up to go to Kamen Core to discuss something. Do you want to go? Ichigo asked Yoruichi. Yoruichi didn't care at all and said, "Of course, I'll go wherever you go." Ichigo was also very happy to hear this, and then thought that Aizen should start in the next few months, so he looked at properties interfaces up. Name: Kurosaki Ichigo, Hōgyoku, S**X. Male age: 15. Spouse. Shihouin Yoruichi, Soul, Potential, Unlimited. Advertisement Ryotsu. Super Captain, 2261,478 20,000s can be broken through. Zanpakudo. The Perfect Zanjetsu, Final Solution, Kido, General. Shunpo. General White Hits, General Slash, General. Combat Experience. General Crescent Moon Sky Chong, General. Crackling Flash. General No Moon, General Hollow, General. Backpack. Character Fragments X61478, Intermediate Express X1400, Advanced Express X1300, Super Express X1200, Breakthrough Card X569. Seeing his own attribute, Ichigo said to Yoruichi, "Do you think it's necessary to regenerate one level?" Yoruichi rolled his eyes amused when he heard this, because everyone else was worried about not being able to improve their strength, and Ichigo was actually worrying about whether or not to improve his strength. If he let others know about it, he wouldn't be envious. Seeing that Yoruichi was very good looking, he rolled his eyes and kissed him and said, "What should I do?" Hearing this, Yoruichi didn't answer and said, "You can figure it out yourself." After speaking, he looked at his own attributes. Name. Shihouin Yoruichi, Hōgyoku, Gender, Female. Advertisement Age, 143. Spouse, Kurosaki Ichigo, Soul. Potential. Unlimited Ryotsu. Super Captain, 2261,478 20,000s can be broken through. Zanpakudo. Night Fist, Final Solution, Kido, General. Shunpo. General White Hits, General Slash, General. Combat Experience. General Instant Open, will buy level. Thor. General Hollow. General Backpack. Character Fragments X61478, Intermediate Experience Beads X1400, Advanced Experience Beads X1300, Super Experience Beads X1200, Breakthrough Cards X569. After reading his current attributes, Yoruichi said to Ichigo, "What do you think?" Hearing this, Ichigo was a little stunned, and then came back to his senses and said, "I feel strong. Listen, when I got here," Yoruichi said, "Very funny. I'm not talking about strength, I'm talking about me." Ichigo understands when I hear this, but Ichigo pretends not to understand and says, "You are very strong." Yoruichi was a little dissatisfied, so he sat up directly on top of Ichigo, and then said, "What about now?" Ichigo looked at her and swallowed and said, "I still don't understand." Hearing this, Yoruichi's face turned dark, but it happened. Very charmingly, he grabbed Ichigo's handle and squeezed lightly. "What did you just say?" Ichigo felt a sharp slap all over his body, and when he wanted to get up to punish Yoruichi, he was still pressed by her. Let Ichigo get up, and she said, "This time I'm here," and started punishing Ichigo. Chapter 156. Daily 1. The next day, I woke up and looked at the messy room, and then looked at Yoruichi lying next to him. Ichigo helped her to straighten her hair with love, and then kissed her forehead. "Close your eyes." After resting for a while, Ichigo woke up and couldn't bear to wake Yoruichi, so he went out to prepare breakfast by himself. After leaving the room, Ichigo first cleaned his body, and then went outside the room for a breath of fresh air. Came outside and saw Kurosaki Ishin and Kurosaki Masaki doing morning exercises outside. Because the two of them have a lot of free time, they both make up their own morning exercises and do it every morning. Even Ichigo and the four of them were forced to do it when there was no class. Of course, it's just Ichigo and Kurosaki now. "Are you up early?" "Ichigo, don't you need to go to bed for a while?" Kurosaki Ishin asked while exercising when he saw Ichigo. "I'm used to it." After Ichigo finished speaking to him, Kurosaki Masaki said, "Ichigo, you got up so early, come over and do it together." 55. Hearing this, Ichigo had to go over and have a F*K with them. And when doing the exercises, Kurosaki Masaki said, "Ichigo, although I don't object, but you have to have some restraint, understand?" she said earnestly. Advertisement. Hearing this, Ichigo also knew what she was trying to say, so Ichigo nodded as well. And Kurosaki Ishin whispered next to Ichigo, "She's thinking about you too. I don't want you to be too obsessed with that aspect. So I want to be alert, but what I want to say to you is that if you want to do what you want to do, it's nothing." As soon as he finished speaking, Kurosaki Masaki looked at Kurosaki Ishin very coldly. Kurosaki Ishin couldn't roar a little, so he said, "I'm going to prepare breakfast." Then he ran away. And while running, he said to Ichigo, "Ichigo, let's eat together in a while, I'll cook a little more," and then went into the house. Seeing this scene, Ichigo also twitched at the corners of his mouth. "Ichigo." Kurosaki Masaki called out Ichigo, and Ichigo looked back at Kurosaki Masaki, and she continued, "Don't push yourself too hard, and don't put too much pressure on yourself, okay?" Hearing this, Ichigo knew why Kurosaki Masaki kept reminding Ichigo. "I see, Mom, I'm going to call Yoruichi now." After Ichigo finished speaking, he walked towards his house. And Kurosaki Masaki also went back to the room to prepare breakfast after Ichigo left. And after Ichigo woke Yoruichi, Yoruichi said coquettishly, "I want you to take me to take a bath." Ichigo reluctantly agreed after hearing this, and then went to eat together after bathing. After eating, I took my bento and headed for the school. Advertisement after arriving at the school, good morning, and, good morning. Ichigo held Yoruichi's hand tightly and walked slowly in the corridor of the school. Many students who knew each other greeted Ichigo and Yoruichi. Ichigo also smiled and responded one by one. 1. Guard. A voice that was heard by a man in a sissy voice entered the ears of everyone present. Keigo Asano, among Ichigo's friends, is the only one who can make this kind of sound. Disgusting sound, and before Ichigo's brain reacted, the school bag in his hand smashed with a bang, and Keigo Asano's entire face hit the school bag. Good morning, Ichigo said. Keigo and Aqua. Good morning, Ichigo. With a rigid smile, Kojima Aqua stood behind Ichigo and said. Dang dang, suddenly rang, and Ichigo and everyone went back to their seats and went to class. Ichigo, are you going tonight? Yoruichi asked Ichigo at noon. There are Ichigo, Yoruichi, Inoue Orihime and Arisawa Tatsuki. After hearing this, Arisawa Tatsuki asked curiously. Where are you going? We're going on our honeymoon, do you want to come with me? Yoruichi said nonchalantly, as if they could come if they wanted, while Inoue Orihime asked. CGBE, strangely. Is it okay? Arisawa Tatsuki of course gave Inoue Orihime a chestnut and said, of course not, really. Seeing this scene, Ichigo smiled and said, no, I just want to go somewhere else. Hearing this, Arisawa Tatsuki and Inoue Orihime were both silent. Okay. Let me tell you, Ichigo was silent for a while, because Aizen should launch an attack on the world soon. And probably because I have gained a lot of strength in the Soul Society this time, and now I have it seems that there is a strong smell of war in the air. Ichigo said after a pause, and I had already thought about it before going to bed last night. That fellow Aizen betrayed the Soul Society and escaped to the virtual circle, but he will only be content to dominate the Hueco Mundo. He will definitely counterattack the Soul Society, but the power of the Soul Society is too strong, especially the Chief Captain Yamamoto Motoriusai Shigekuni and the 4th Division Captain Yunohana Retsu. They are probably Aizen's most feared Shinigami. Even if Aizen gets Hōgyoku, I'm afraid Aizen won't choose to go head-to-head with Soul Society. And that guy Aizen is very smart, and his intelligence is probably only below that of Urahara Kazuki, who loves to pretend to be mysterious. I don't know how he will make a move, but I thought about it. If I were that guy, I would choose attacking the world. The guy Rukia Kuchiki once said that the souls of the world and the Soul Society are interconnected, and both sides continue to export their souls to the other side. After the death of human beings, the soul goes to the Soul Society, and after Shinigami kills the virtual, it will also decide whether to enter the Soul Society or hell according to the good and evil of the human beings, and the people of the Soul Society just live longer and age more slowly than the human beings in this world. There are also deaths from illness and being killed. And the soul after death will return to the present world to achieve balance. Ishida Yulong in our class, that guy is the Quincy. When the Quincy kills the virtual, he kills it completely, just like eating the virtual. Just like dropping the soul, wipe out the existence of the other party completely. In this case, the soul input into the Soul Society in the present world will inevitably decrease, and finally the balance will be destroyed, which will lead to the complete collapse of the Soul Society in the present world. So as long as that fellow Aizen attacks the world, then a large number of phantoms will be sent into the world, and by then, I am afraid that it will not be these stray fish phantoms. Ichigo said, pointing to the sky. Hado number 4, by Lei. A white thunder light shot directly into the sky, and at this moment, a crack suddenly opened in the sky, and an empty head stuck out, and just as it came out, Ichigo's white thunder shot directly. Wearing a fake head. At this time, Arisawa Tatsuki's Shinigami proxy card, who had just called out, fell silent. Chapter 157. Yami and Ulquiorra Karakura Town General Hospital. This is a large 5-story hospital. Ishida Yulong stepped into the hospital and walked out directly towards the director's room. Ishida Yulong had never been here, so he was arrested when he went to the 5th floor. Blocked, because this floor is the dean's room and some other rooms, which are not open to the outside world, and Yulong directly broke in and was blocked. But after a little explanation, Ishida Yulong was able to move on. Are you here yet? Ishida Ryuzen crossed the document in his hand with his elbows on the table, looked at Ishida Yulong and said, then do you want to continue? I want to become stronger, I want to defeat him. Ishida Yulong hesitated for a moment, then said firmly. I swear, as long as I become stronger than him, I will no longer have anything with Shinigami and Shinigami's companions. Any connection. Ishida Longshan looked at Ishida Yulong and nodded slightly. Okay, then we can start soon. And what Yuryu Ishida said was Ichigo minus. On the other side, Ichigo and Yoruichi were still talking, and at this moment, a huge Ryotsu suddenly appeared. Inoue Orihime fell to the ground unexpectedly, and then Inoue Orihime got up and looked in the direction Ryotsu came from. Said, what's going on? How can such a powerful Ryotsu suddenly flow out? It's 2 strands. Ichigo said, it's 2 powerful people. From the perspective of Ryotsu, they're empty, but there is a hint of Shinigami. The 2 Ryotsu are strong and weak, which means that one of them is very strong. But the strange thing is that the slightly weaker Ryotsu gave me a feeling of extreme danger. I'm afraid this Ryotsu is not the embodiment of his full strength. Che, did it come earlier than I expected? But fortunately I have already made preparations. Saying that, Ichigo pulled Yoruichi up and said, Longui, we too are going. Then Ichigo held the direction Yoruichi recognized, and rushed directly towards the source of Ryotsu. And when Arisawa Tatsuki is going to say something else, when Ichigo and Yoruichi disappear, I won't say anything. Hey, Kurosaki-san isn't as good as Shinigami, Inoue or Hime said curiously. And Arisawa Tatsuki was surprised when he heard it. Ichigo hugged Yoruichi and rushed in the direction Ryotsu came from. Soon Ichigo and Yoruichi came to a green park. After all, there is such a large forest in the city that there is only greenery. Two people, no, it should be two Arancars slowly coming out of the pit. There are many people around them. Of course, ordinary people can't see the void, let alone Arancars, so they are not together. Little do they know, danger is coming towards them. These guys are really noisy, a big Arancar said, and then he wanted to open his mouth suddenly and take a breath. The souls of ordinary people around him began to separate from their bodies. Ichigo's eyes narrowed and he immediately raised Tensei-Zanjetsu in his hand, suddenly slashed towards Arancar, and a sword pressure shot out immediately. Arancar, who was about to eat his soul, immediately sensed it. He immediately stopped absorbing his soul. He didn't look up, but immediately turned back. With a boom, the huge sword pressed directly against where he was standing. The ground was cut open, and a huge gap appeared. Advertisement. Who is making trouble for me? Arancar raised his head and shouted loudly. As Arancar stopped absorbing, the souls in the sky were revealed one after another, only to see chains appearing in the chests of these souls connecting their bodies, but they were stunned. They looked at the three people who suddenly appeared in front of them. The Taoist figure was completely at a loss. The silhouettes of Ichigo and Yoruichi fell, and Tensei-Zanjetsu, who was standing in front of the two Arancars, pointed directly at the two Arancars on the opposite side. One was a rough big man with a symmetrical crimson mark on his face, and the mask was positioned on his chin. The other has black shattered hair, pale complexion, green eyes, and dark green tear-like marks on his face. The virtual mask is located on the left half of the head, in the shape of a helmet with horns. The two people were wearing white kimonos, and both had a huge hole in their chests. Cut. Two Arancars. Ichigo said, what did that fellow Aizen ask you to do in this world? Ichigo naturally knew that these two were Arancars. The big one is called Yami, the other is called Ulquiorra, and the two are mainly Ulquiorra. This guy, it's Shinigami. Hey, Ulquiorra, are we looking for this guy? Yami started. Katakana middle dot flowers. Dead tyrant outfit, orange hair, brown pupils. Yes, it's this guy, and the other person being held should be Shihouin Yoruichi. Ulquiorra nodded slightly. Okay, in this case, you don't have to go around looking for them. Yami looked at Ichigo and said, although you have disturbed my eating, but for the sake of your initiative, I will forgive you. From the souls of ordinary people, your soul should be more delicious. Ulquiorra didn't speak, just stood there tightly. Ichigo held Tensei-Zanjetsu in Yoruichi's hand and said, I'm sorry, this is not Hueco Mundo. This is the world. I will not let you mess around, and as Shinigami, I will protect the souls of these ordinary people from being eaten by you. It is my duty to eat, so none of these souls behind me will be eaten by you. Point 0. What? Yami was stunned for a moment, and then said, didn't I say, I'm no longer interested in the souls of ordinary people, and it's too bad, I'm more interested in your soul. On the contrary, the soul of Shinigami is 100 times better than the soul of ordinary people. Hey, why don't you follow the chains on your body and return to your own bodies, and then run away? Do you really want them to be eaten? Ichigo turned his head to look at the people behind him. He shouted loudly with the souls of himself and Yami and Ulquiorra. Hearing Ichigo's voice, they were startled, and then followed the chains and returned to their bodies according to Ichigo's words. After a while, the surrounding humans began to stand up slowly, and at this time they could no longer see Ichigo and Yami, and could not hear the sound. The gap between them immediately knew that what had just happened was indeed true. They looked at each other, and immediately fled towards the surroundings. Soon the surrounding humans were gone, and Ichigo let out a slight sigh of relief. In this case, you can fight with confidence. After speaking, Ichigo glanced slightly not far, and then focused his eyes on Yami and Ulquiorra. Predict. Chapter 158. Battle Yami. Lori is wordy, it's so noisy, Yami said. How far are you ignoring me? Then he punched Ichigo. Ichigo hugged Yoruichi back. Yami's the fist hit the ground. Then he came under the tree and said, stay here, I'll fix it right away. After that, he came to Yami again. This should be the footwork of that Shunpo of Shinigami, Yami said, looking at Ichigo's figure. Although you have the so-called Shunpo, we Arancar also have similar skills, they call him ringing. This idiot, he took the initiative to tell the other party about his abilities. Ulquiorra looked at Yami and said secretly in his heart, then put his eyes on Ichigo and said, is this the person Aizen-sama wants us to be careful of? Why is it so ordinary, and it feels so he looks like an ordinary person, but Lord Aizen has suffered too much in his hands, so, May 20. Must be a strong man who can hide his strength from others. Shunpo. I haven't used Shunpo yet, Ichigo said with a funny smile, and then Ichigo looked at Yami and said, but since you mentioned Shunpo, then I'll use it, otherwise, if I let you it's not good if you take it too lightly. As soon as the voice fell, Ichigo's figure disappeared, and Yami's figure also disappeared. Suddenly a blood column shot out. Ichigo and Yami's figures appeared at the same time, Ichigo held tense Zangetsu said. In this case, since he can still dodge my fatal blow, he is really a simple-minded guy. The body's reaction is always faster than the brain. Yami stood in front of Ichigo and said angrily, "What did you say?" A huge hole in his chest was cut open, and blood was pouring out continuously. "Don't get me wrong, I'm complimenting you," Ichigo said with a flick of tense Zangetsu. "And it's not very simple, just in that case, if the brain reacts a little faster, then wait for your brain to react. And then you will only move your body, which will take at least a little time. So maybe, the injury you have suffered is more than this, but because your body reacts far faster than your brain. So in your brain when you haven't reacted, your body will automatically react by instinct, avoiding my attack, and after evading my attack, your brain finally reacts, but it's really because your brain reacts, makes your body unable to rely on the instinctive response, so instead, I will slash your chest with such a knife. This instinctive response is very difficult to cultivate, at least I have not successfully cultivated, so I say that you are very powerful. You be asterisk 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 D. Yami looked at Ichigo, then slightly stretched out his hand to pull Zanpakuto from his waist. When his hand was on his waist, Ulquiorra finally spoke, only to hear his face blank. Looking at Yami with an expression, he said, "Hey, Yami, Aizen-sama said that this guy has just become a Shinigami not long ago, it seems that it has only been a year. The ability to get Bankai is only a little bit longer, are you going to use Zanpakuto against this guy?" "Noisy, Yami yelled, turning to look at Ulquiorra. "Idiot," Ulquiorra said blankly, "I was distracted during the battle." Yami was stunned, then turned his head and saw a black figure appearing in front of him, it was Ichigo. "That's right, distraction in battle often costs life," Ichigo said. The tip of a knife was stabbing Yami's head. Yami opened his eyes and looked at the knife in shock, he thought. "I want to use the ring, but the strong Ryatsu oppresses me. Although I can't limit my movement, it makes myself a temporary pause. Although the time is short, it is enough to make myself lose the time to use the ring." The right hand is instinctive. Raising it, Puchi, Ichigo's Zanpakuto stabbed directly into Yami's arm, and then penetrated directly, but the blade stopped when it was only 1 centimeter away from Yami's head. Because the two fingers were pinching the blade of Ichigo's Tensa Zangetsu, Ulquiorra, just when Tensa Zangetsu was about to stab Yami's head, he even appeared beside Yami, stretched out his right hand and pinched Tensa Zangetsu with 2 fingers, saved Yami. Otherwise, Tensa Zangetsu will penetrate Yami's head, and even if the virtual is penetrated, there is absolutely no possibility of survival. Not bad, Ichigo looked at Ulquiorra with narrowed eyes, and where he occupied before, and Ulquiorra was disappearing. Ichigo held Tensa Zangetsu's wrist and turned it over. Tensa Zangetsu was spinning at a high speed. Because of the high-speed rotation, Ulquiorra could only release the Tensa Zangetsu, and at the same time, because of the high-speed rotation, Ichigo opened a hole in Yami's arm. "Ah, damn, you damn guy, you even attacked." Yami screamed first, then became furious. "Dow," but Ichigo had already pulled out Tensa Zangetsu, backed up, and slightly opened the distance between the two sides. Ichigo glanced at Yami. Yami's right arm had a hole in his right arm, and it was hanging down in boredom. If nothing else, at least this hand didn't have the slightest combat power in a short period of time, and he lost a hand. Yami is not in Ichigo's eyes, so Ichigo focused most of his attention on Ulquiorra. Watching Ulquiorra, Ichigo said silently, "It should have been ringing just now, compared to Yami. His ringing is faster, and this feeling seems to have a sense of space. Maybe it is a kind of space transfer." At this time, Ichigo smiled at Yoruichi very easily and then held Tensa Zangetsu again. This guy is able to cut through Yami's steel skin. Is this power given to him by Zanpakuto, or does he already have this power? Ulquiorra looked at Ichigo and said secretly in his heart, then turned his head to look at Yami. "Do you want to exchange? You don't seem to be his opponent." "Less wordy." Yami shouted loudly, then pulled out Zanpakuto directly, then slashed towards Ichigo. Just as Yami pulled out Zanpakuto, Ulquiorra returned to where he was fighting before. Ichigo watched Yami's attack, and his figure disappeared instantly. He stood on Yami's shoulder and said to Yami, "Since you have Zanpakuto, you must be able to liberate enough for 1.4. How about liberating? Let me see your true strength, otherwise, with the current you, there is no value in fighting at all," said Ichigo, and Tensa Zangetsu looked directly at Yami's right shoulder, because Yami has more than all Arankars. Steel skin, so Ichigo's Zanpakuto just chopped in half and didn't quite look his arm down. With a smile on the corner of Ichigo's mouth, he said softly, "Crescent Moon Chong." A black crescent moon splashed directly from Yami's shoulders, hitting Ulquiorra who was still standing before, and Ulquiorra just stretched slightly. He shot, then directly grabbed the black crescent moon, and then exerted a slight force on his hand. The whole crescent moon was completely broken, and at this moment, an arm completely fell, and Ulquiorra looked at his palm in surprise, and then it was fine again under high-speed regeneration. Chapter 159. Battle of Ulquiorra. "Damn," Yami said angrily, and then grabbed his left hand towards Ichigo. Ichigo ignored it and held Tensa Zangetsu, directly cutting off his entire arm. "Kacha!" Yami couldn't even hold Zanpakuto and fell to the ground. He clutched his handed arm and said angrily, "You be asterisk 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 D. It really makes me angry." Yami grabbed the ground directly. Zanpakuto, Ranhu charged directly towards Ichigo. HMPH, do you still want to fight under this circumstance? It looks like you don't even want the other hand. Ichigo said softly, and then charged towards Yami with his feet, and Ichigo's figure flickered. At this high speed, let alone Yami, even Ulquiorra can only detect Ichigo's figure after concentrating all of his energy. After all, Ichigo is using a general level Shunpo, and he didn't use his full strength at all, just playing, that's it. Ichigo rushed in front of Yami, a little under his feet. The whole person rushed in front of Yami in an instant, his feet 26 feet on the back of his Zanpakuto's knife, and then the whole person came in front of him in an instant. Tensa Zangetsu stabbed towards his heart. Seeing that Tensa Zangetsu had broken the skin of Yami's chest, but was blocked by Zanpakuto. Tensa Zangetsu broke through the skin of Yami's chest, and when he was about to penetrate Yami's body, a knife appeared on Tensa Zangetsu's blade and blocked it, but Ichigo's strength was terrifying, so this knife also pushed away by Ichigo. Yami was also indirectly attacked by Tensa Zangetsu, but only left a huge scratch on Yami's chest. Ichigo glanced, and the Zanpakuto just now belonged to Ulquiorra, who suddenly appeared. I saw Ulquiorra looking at Ichigo. He raised his foot slightly and kicked over. He didn't kick at Ichigo, but at Yami's elbow holding Zanpakuto. I saw the Zanpakuto that Yami was holding immediately stabbed towards Ichigo's chest. Ichigo's eyes were very relaxed, the figure did not retreat, and he pushed towards Yami regardless, and Yami's Zanpakuto was already close to Ichigo's body. When Zanpakuto was blocked, it was Ryotsu who appeared from Ichigo from time to time to block Yami's Zanpakuto. Seeing this scene, Ulquiorra quickly grabbed Yami and turned 50 meters away. Ulquiorra ignored Yami, but looked at Ichigo and said, I want to discuss with your excellency. Although Ulquiorra asked Ichigo, this sentence was not a question but a statement. Hey, this guy is my opponent, don't take my prey, Yami said loudly. Ulquiorra didn't even look at Yami, and continued to stare at Ichigo. Now you or even I can't be his opponent at all, you should know it. And, don't forget, his Zanpakuto ability, so far, he hasn't used it at all. Ulquiorra's figure disappeared in front of Ichigo. Ichigo's pupils shrank suddenly, because at this moment Ichigo completely lost trace of Ulquiorra, and even Ryotsu looked for it, not. Range 1. Ichigo's mind flashed this thought, and then Ichigo's figure disappeared in place without a moment, and at this moment Ulquiorra appeared where Ichigo was standing. Nice reaction. Ulquiorra looked at Ichigo and said, under these circumstances, he was able to evade my attack so easily. Advertisement, it was impossible to detect his trace at that moment. Sure enough, Range 1 is a space-based footwork. Unlike Shunpo only has a high-speed moving footwork. You can also learn the footwork, and Soul Society and Hōgyoku Mundo have fought fiercely for so many years. I am afraid that Advanced Shu has learned Shunpo, and now Shu has mastered Range 1. It seems that Soul Society and Hōgyoku Mundo. I am afraid that the balance of power will change again after Aizen's defection. Thinking of this, Ichigo also said very easily, it seems that the water can't be released. 99. I also hope that your excellency can use all your strength, Ulquiorra said respectfully. When Ichigo heard it, he smiled and said, then see how much power you can force out of me. After speaking, Ichigo disappeared instantly. Seeing this, Ulquiorra's pupils shrank, because this speed is completely different from the speed just now, and then Ichigo came to him in an instant and would give him a knife, and Ulquiorra had to raise his hand to block it when he saw it, but he was about to touch him. By the time of his Zanpakuto, Ichigo disappeared and appeared behind Ulquiorra's Zanpakuto. Gave him a knife. Ulquiorra was very surprised, because he was still very confused, but looking at Ichigo who appeared not far in front of him and asked, is this your true strength? Hearing this, Ichigo also said, who knows, 35. Then Ulquiorra disappeared again with a swivel, and Ichigo disappeared with him. No matter where Ulquiorra appeared, Ichigo's shadow appeared beside him, and every time Ulquiorra played, the wounds on Ulquiorra increased, and Ichigo did not at all. Nothing at all. And Ulquiorra and Ichigo distanced themselves and fired Sero towards Ichigo. The green Ryotsu condensed at his fingertips, and then shot towards Ichigo, and Ichigo also waved Tensa Zangetsu a little seriously. A sword pressure appeared and collided with Sero together, offset. After that, Ulquiorra's injuries were regenerated by high-speed regeneration, and seeing this scene, Ichigo said, what a great ability. Do you want to come and fight again? Hearing this, Ulquiorra shook his head. Let's go, Yami, Ulquiorra said suddenly, then turned slightly out of thin air. The space immediately cracked, revealing a black passage. At this moment, Yoruichi came to Ichigo and asked, just let them go. Hearing this, Ichigo smiled and said, it's okay, it's one of the fun anyway, isn't it? Yoruichi also laughed when he heard this. Stand up. After hearing this sentence, Ulquiorra paused, and then entered the passage with Yami. Chapter 160. Someone from Soul Society, Hōgyoku Mundo. Ulquiorra and Yami are too close to a palace like a palace. This is the palace where Aizen Sosuke, who escaped from the Soul Society, is in. Ulquiorra and Yami stepped into a large hall. Above the main hall, Aizen Sosuke was sitting on the throne in front. He looked at Ulquiorra and Yami and said, welcome back, Ulquiorra, Yami. I think you must have done it perfectly. Have completed the task I gave you, then report your task in front of 20 of our compatriots. Yes, Lord Aizen, Ulquiorra said, then slightly stretched out his hand to pull out one of his eyeballs. Holding the eyeball, Ulquiorra said, please see, Lord Aizen, and then suddenly crushed the eyeball in his hand. Aizen and others were able to see countless images from the little stars, from Ulquiorra's arrival to reality to his return to Hueco Mundo, everything. There are images, like watching a TV show, and Ulquiorra's eyes play it all out. After a while, after everyone watched all the images, Aizen said, I see, because Kurosaki Ichigo's strength has already been shown, so you and Yami can only retreat. You're too cowardly, Ulquiorra, you didn't kill that man with all your strength. Aqua blue broken hair, icy blue eyes, 4 bangs down his forehead, green eyeshadow Aaroncar lines, and a row on the right cheek. Toothed virtual mask. Grimjow. Ulquiorra looked at the man and said, I have already said that Kurosaki Ichigo is not something we can deal with, and he is not using his full strength at all, just playing, and the most important thing is that my task is to let's test Kurosaki Ichigo's strength. HMPH, after all, you're not afraid, Grimjow said, and this guy Yami got his entire arm chopped off, what a shame. What the hell are you talking about? Yami was furious. Ulquiorra threw Yami's arm to Yami and said, okay, stop talking nonsense, you go to the treatment, connect the arm. But, Yami said. Advertisement, okay. Ulquiorra, Yami, you go to rest first, Aizen said. Ulquiorra and Yami stopped talking when they heard Aizen's opening, and turned to leave. Grimjow closed his mouth because of Aizen's opening. In the present world, because of Arankar's arrival, Kurosaki couple, Ishida Yuryu, and the Kamen army all felt it, they were very concerned, but Ichigo and Yoruichi didn't come here because they felt it. And it was also known to the people of Soul Society. Ichigo and Yoruichi also went back to school after seeing them go back, and they also went to class after going back, so Ichigo said, it's just right. Hearing Ichigo's rant, Yoruichi also smiled and said, it's almost. And then he went into the classroom and started a class, and Arisawa Tatsuki saw Ichigo and Yoruichi come in, and when he was about to say something, he saw the teacher come in, so he stopped talking. In the void, a partition sliding door suddenly appeared in the air, but it happened to be crowded with people below, but they didn't notice anything. But also, this is Soul Society's piercing gate. All the people going back and forth in the piercing gate are Shinigami, and ordinary humans naturally cannot see Shinigami. Unless it is a human with high spiritual power, but even if there are so many human beings with high spiritual power, they will not say it, because no one will believe it, because everyone will only use their own knowledge and cognition to understand everything, and regard this cognition as true. Once it exceeds their cognition and knowledge, then he will selectively ignore it. If he says a few more words, he will be gradually alienated by the people around him, so these high spiritual powers after the human beings continue to suffer losses, they gradually become invisible. The sliding door opened, and 6 figures appeared inside the sliding door. The current one looked like a 12 or 3-year-old boy with short white hair and a white yori. On the back of yori was a. The cross is exactly Hitsugaya Dashiro, the captain of the 10th Division, and behind him is the big-haired blonde royal sister, Matsumoto Rangaku, in addition to the 2 of them, who has been in this world before and is now regarded as a guide Rukia Kuchiki and Abarai Renji, who was sent by Byakuya Kuchiki because he was worried about Rukia. The last 2, Madarame Mikaku with a big bald head and Yasugawa Yumachika, who is inseparable with Madarame Mikaku, said weakly, there they were tortured by their leader Zaraki Kenpachi, so they could only escape here. Of course, the bright side was attacked by Aizen in this world, so they came to set up defenses in advance. Is this the real world? Matsumoto Rangaku stepped forward and threw himself on Hitsugaya Dashiro's back, burying Hitsugaya Dashiro's head in a pair of T**s and said, it's amazing, there are so many like this. Tall, Lee's, building. Captain, let's go shopping. Matsumoto. Hitsugaya Dashiro's eyes were blocked by Matsumoto Rangaku's big breasts, and the black, character protruded directly on his head. If you do this again, you will immediately return to Soul Society for me. Mama, alright, Captain Hitsugaya, now is not the time to talk about this. Rukia immediately reconciled. Now let's go to a hidden place, and then enter the corpse. Then Rukia said with a slight pause. Of course, in this world, it is not allowed to carry knives, so when you enter the corpse, you must also bring Zanpakuto in. Can't you bring a knife? It's a troublesome rule, Madarame Mikaku complained, but didn't object. So the group started to fall.